37. The Everlasting Contract. Comma. Third POV. Subaru returned to the mansion, his mind heavy with urgency. He needed to visit Regulus' wives as soon as possible. Now that the Sin Archbishop of Greed was good as dead, they were vulnerable to unexpected danger. But first, there was another pressing matter. Rosewall. He couldn't let that guy cook up whatever scheme he was cooking, unsupervised. That man was a walking disaster waiting to happen. Sigh. Later, Subaru thought. For now, he decided to meet with Beatrice. With a soft thud, he pushed open the doors to the forbidden library. It seems you've returned from the capital, I suppose, Beatrice said, barely glancing up from her book, not at all surprised. Then, without missing a beat, she added, I take it you've dealt with the witch cultists, I suppose. Yes, and I got this after defeating the Sin Archbishop of Sloth, Subaru replied, choosing his words carefully as he reached into his coat and pulled out the glintstone. Beatrice's eyes widened. Impossible, it's Gius. She gasped, rushing toward him. Seeing the desperation in her eyes, Subaru handed her the stone without hesitation. He's just sleeping, she whispered, cradling the glintstone gently in her hands. But his witch factor is gone, which shouldn't be possible. Her gaze slowly lifted to meet Subaru's. Her voice trembled slightly, but her expression was firm. Who are you, truly? In fact, I've already told you, Subaru said bluntly, standing still under the soft light of the library. I'm someone from beyond the great waterfall, and perhaps, the sage candidate. Beatrice's eyes widened slightly. Sage candidate, she repeated, surprised. But there was something else in her voice, sadness. This wasn't the answer she had hoped for. And for you, Subaru suddenly said, kneeling down to face her properly, if you want, only if you truly want, I will be that person. The words echoed in the stillness of the library. Words she'd been longing to hear for centuries. You're Betty's, that person? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Subaru smiled softly. Whether I'm that person or not, it's not up to destiny. It's your choice, Betty. You have the right to decide. She trembled. Why, you're trying to trick me again, aren't you? I've waited 400 years for that person. I don't have a choice. She cried out, puffing her cheeks in frustration, but her voice broke near the end. Subaru looked her in the eyes. The Witch of Greed, Echidna, he said slowly. Beatrice flinched. She created the idea of that person as a test. An experiment, to see whether you truly have free will. Shut up, Beatrice screamed, releasing a violent burst of magic toward Subaru, trying to hurl him away. But the swirling spells vanished the moment they touched the golden aura cloaking him. It's the truth, Betty, Subaru said softly, not moving. I've seen the future, with my own eyes. Shut up, shut up, shut up, she screamed again, shaking her head as tears spilled down her cheeks. You're saying Betty's been waiting 400 years, for nothing. For that person, who never even existed. She shouted, lashing out with her magic again, and again, and again. Each blast hit him, but they dissipated harmlessly. To him, the attacks were nothing. But to her, they were everything. They carried her sorrow, her frustration, her anger at the world. At Echidna, at him. If only he'd said he was that person. If only he'd lied. She would have believed him. But he didn't, because that person never existed. Subaru stepped forward through the storm of magic. And then, he gently wrapped his arms around her small, trembling frame. I know, he whispered. You've waited so long. Dutifully, faithfully, it must have been lonely. Painful, devastating. Beatrice froze. But if you take my hand, Betty, if you choose me, he said softly, then it won't be lonely anymore. Several people have tried to take advantage of Betty, for her knowledge, for her powers. How are you any different? She barked, tears brimming in her eyes. There is a difference, Betty, Subaru said, locking eyes with her butterfly-shaped pupils. They were after your knowledge and power, but I am after you. I want you, he said firmly. Even if I agree, so what? You're a human. You'll die and leave Betty alone. Just like everyone else did. She shouted, stumbling a step back. Everyone dies one day, that's just life, Subaru said quietly, but memories, they can be forever. And even if I'm gone, my memories will stay with you. My spirits will stay with you. And maybe, my children, and their children, will stay by your side too. He stepped closer. Beatrice, I promise, if you choose me, I'll tell you bedtime stories, bring you the sweetest sweets this world has to offer, I'll make you smile. I'll make you happy. And I swear, you'll never be lonely again. She trembled, voice cracking. Why you're not that person, why aren't you? Why couldn't you be? She cried, not at him, but at the cruel fate that mocked her devotion. Subaru gently knelt before her. If you want, I'll be that person, or maybe I never will be. But I can promise you one thing, Betty, no, Biko. He looked up, eyes unwavering. I'll be better than the one who left you waiting for 400 years. He extended his hand. Choose me, Betty. You are not that person. No, I'm not, but it's time for you to make a choice. Shut up. You're not that person, she screamed, eyes burning with desperation. Yes, Subaru said, voice calm but resolute. But I'm better, so choose me. Those two words, choose me, started ringing in her mind, looping like a broken recorder, echoing in every corner of her heart. Her breath trembled as she finally looked at him, really looked at him. Do you promise to never leave Betty, until death do us part? I do. Do you promise that you'll tell Betty bedtime stories, and hold her hand wherever you go? I do. Do you promise that you'll treat Betty to the sweetest sweets in the world, and that you'll never, ever leave me alone again? Her voice cracked like fragile glass. It's a difficult one, but I do, he whispered, pulling her into a gentle hug. Her small hands hesitated, then wrapped around him tightly. He scooped her up and began spinning in slow, playful circles. You know, I always wanted a younger sister. And Betty is the best younger sister, I suppose. He laughed, warmth radiating from his voice. Beatrice blinked in surprise, then let out a soft giggle as he set her down. My real name is Natsuki Subaru, he said, meeting her eyes. Her butterfly-shaped pupils widened, and slowly, a radiant smile bloomed across her face. Subaru, she breathed. Yes, he nodded. Subaru, 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 she cried, throwing her arms around him again, clutching him as if the world would end if she let go. Yes, I'm Subaru, your Subaru, and after 400 years of loneliness, sorrow, and waiting. The contract had finally come to an end. To be continued. Give me power stones. 43 comments 0 vote. 38 the night. Third POV. So, you intend to go after his wives now, I suppose? Beatrice asked, her small hands still gently intertwined with Subaru's. Yes, I'm sorry, Betty. But it seems I've got a mountain of things to deal with. Starting with saving Regulus's wives, he replied as they walked through the hallway, toward the secured room where the barely alive remnants of Regulus corneas were sealed. Though, I'll need Reina's help with something, Subaru added, lifting a hand and taking a stance. With this sacred treasure, I summon the Sword Saint. Reina. Beatrice blinked. Her brows twitched as she watched her contractor dramatically strike a pose like he was on stage. Shameless fool, she muttered, but there was the faintest smile on her lips. A golden flash lit the room, and within a blink, the fabled Sword Saint appeared. 0. I'm here. Reina's voice rang sharp and clear. She looked ready for battle, but her gaze quickly dropped to where Subaru's hand held Beatrice's. A pause. Her eyes narrowed. A tick of jealousy flared within. Isn't that the great spirit of Yin? She asked flatly, pointing at their joined hands. Yes. And she's not just my contracted spirit, Subaru said proudly, puffing his chest. She's my Imouto too. Reina blinked, then gave Subaru a long, unreadable look. Betty is the best great spirit, in fact. She declared with the poise of a queen, chin raised, eyes closed. Reina's lips twitched. She looked away, struggling not to smile. Ah, I see, she said, voice low, like someone grappling with a fundamental reality shift. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she briefly questioned if a union between spirit and man had ever truly worked. Nope, can't imagine it. Meanwhile, Gius and Fortuna are rolling in their spirit graves. Then her eyes drifted to the grotesque remains of Regulus, still alive, barely. And who's this? She asked, her tone shifting to cold professionalism, finger pointed at the twitching pile of flesh like it offended her soul. Subaru sighed and quickly recounted everything, from the battle against the White Whale to the hellish confrontation with the Sin Archbishops, and finally, his contract with Beatrice. Reina listened in silence, her expression unreadable, until the story ended. Normally, she'd shine with admiration. But not now. Instead, she walked forward and suddenly wrapped him in a tight hug, her voice trembling. Why didn't you call for me? She whispered. You could have died. Her voice cracked, the frustration and worry bleeding through. Am I that worthless? Do you not trust me? But the questions weren't for Subaru. They were for herself. He gently patted her back and said, I made a promise, Reina, that I would become someone worthy of being your lord, didn't I? Now you can proudly be my knight. After all, I'm the one who slayed the White Whale and the Sin Archbishops of Sloth and Greed. Why you did it for me? The realization hit her. Yes, he could have called her, could have relied on her, not that she would have minded. but knowing he chose to risk his life for her. She felt warm inside. An intense desire to make him hers welled up within her. She hugged him tightly. I understand. It would be too selfish of me to say anything more. But, I want to become your knight. She broke the hug and looked into his eyes. I, Reina van Astria, want to become your devoted knight, the sword that slays your enemies. So please, let me be your sword. She knelt before him, and Subaru was stunned. Today's been wild. First, I slay 2 archbishops, then make a contract with Betty, and now this. He thought. Don't we need some official ceremony or something? You know, for swearing fealty or whatever. He asked awkwardly. He wasn't exactly well versed in this kind of thing. No, only official knighthood requires a ceremony. So I pledge my loyalty to you, do you accept it? She asked, eyes locked on his. I accept, he replied. I mean, what else was he supposed to say? In just the past 2 days, more had happened to him than in his entire life. She smiled and bowed her head. Hereby, I, Reina van Astria, dedicate my sword and life to my one and only lord. Good. Now that you're my knight, I can finally tell you my name. It's Natsuki Subaru, he said. Natsuki Subaru, she repeated softly. The name engraved itself on her heart. It was the name of the lord she had sworn to serve. Reina, he said, gently placing his hands on her shoulders and helping her stand, I promise I'll become a lord you can be proud of. There's no need for that, she wanted to say. All she really needed was an excuse to stay by his side, to protect him, and maybe, just maybe, make him hers one day. That was how selfish her heart truly was. T.N. Question, who loves Subaru more? Reina or Envy? Now, Reina, I have a quest for you, he said. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation. I want you to return to the capital and deliver the news of the White Whale's demise, as well as the deaths of the Sin Archbishops of Greed and Sloth, to the council. Tell them that I handled it, and that the Amelia camp is taking credit, he said. My liege, do you plan to serve that woman? She asked, somewhat dissatisfied. In her eyes, Lord Subaru was far above some half-elf who couldn't even stand firm on her own. No, I consider Amelia an ally. I'll fully support her claim to the throne, and in return, she'll provide her resources to aid me, he explained calmly. Reina let out a soft breath of relief. If that woman dared to treat her lord like a servant, she wouldn't have hesitated to send her head rolling. Still, she's gotten into the role pretty fast, huh? Subaru mused, glancing at her, unaware of the murderous thoughts flashing behind her serene expression. Very well, my liege. I shall deliver the news to the Council of Wise Men and return to your side to carry out my duties, she said, bowing slightly. He nodded. Having her around ensures everyone's safety. Even if things went south with Rosewall, he wouldn't need to fear him. He knew that, with his aura, psychic abilities, and spiritual prowess, especially now with the empowerment from the 2 swords of power, he surpassed Rosewall. But Rosewall was the type who might snap once cornered. And you should never underestimate crazy people. Thus, Reina departed, teleporting back to the capital to deliver the news. Meanwhile, Subaru unrolled the world map and discussed the location Gluttony had revealed, the hidden place where Regulus wives were being held captive. It's southwest of here, even farther than the royal capital, in fact, Beatrice said, tracing a route on the map. He nodded. If I run at full speed, I can get there in a few minutes, he thought. It wasn't an exaggeration, he had calculated it. His current speed clocked in at nearly 8 kilometers per second, something he confirmed using his psychic abilities. By all logic, such speed should require insane levels of force and energy, but somehow, he could do it naturally, like he had developed a special affinity or ability tied to speed itself. Another mystery to ponder later, he noted mentally. Hey, Betty, you know I can act as a spirit anchor, right? He said, glancing at her. Her eyes widened in surprise. You want to see if Betty can anchor to you, I suppose? She asked, her voice bubbling with excitement. Subaru instinctively took a step back. The sheer sparkle in her eyes gave him goosebumps. The analogy of someone being inside him felt a bit too violating, not to mention the cursed memory of those pregnant Subaru fanfics from his past life. He visibly shuddered. Very well, let's check it out, I suppose. Beatrice said cheerfully, placing her hand on his chest before vanishing in an instant. Betty, he called, glancing around. I'm here, inside of you. And I must say, it's wonderful, her voice echoed warmly within him. Wonderful. In what way? He asked, sweating nervously. Goddamn those fanfic writers. They've ruined Zero for me. It's your soul, she explained, matter-of-factly. It has 2 distinct colors. One is orange, warm and vibrant, and the other is transparent with a faint golden tint. She sounded like she was describing a lovely grove in a forest rather than his soul. I personally prefer the white one more, she added casually. Right, anyway, time to bag up what's left of Regulus, he said, slipping the corpse into a bag. He coated it with his aura just to make sure it wouldn't disintegrate or fly off mid-run. Alright, I'll start heading for the destination. Please guide me, Betty. Do not worry, Betty is the best guide, I suppose. She replied proudly, her tone haughty and smug. Subaru stepped outside and began running at a moderate speed, waiting until he was a fair distance from the village and the mansion before picking up the pace. Very well, turn to the left. A little more, and perfect. Beatrice instructed, her voice clear in his mind. Subaru nodded, coating his body in aura to avoid repeating his previous mistake. He bent his knees slightly, preparing himself for the jump. With a powerful thrust, the ground cracked beneath him as he shot into the sky, soaring several hundred meters high. He scanned the horizon, then adjusted his trajectory before landing with a heavy thud that sent dust flying in all directions. He took off, his body becoming a blur, legs moving in a frantic, almost unnatural rhythm. His figure tore through the landscape like a force of nature, leaving sonic booms in his wake, each step reverberating with immense force. Thankfully, his thinking speed was 1,000 times faster than the average person's, allowing him to process the world around him in slow motion. He weaved through obstacles effortlessly, taking detours with ease as if the world itself had slowed down just for him. His speed peaked, and the ground beneath him began to scorch from the sheer intensity of his momentum. He pushed forward, faster than a comet, feeling the wind whip against his face as he neared his destination. We're here, he said, his voice steady, despite the incredible pace. Now, all we need to do is find the castle. No matter what awaited him in that castle, he was ready. To be continued. A.N. Mommy. I am number one. I thank all of you. Let's keep up with the momentum, give me your power stones and we remain as the king this week. 30 comments 0 vote. 39 Regulus is dead. Third person POV. Regulus' wives lived in an ancient, crumbling castle, secluded from the world, where they carried out every task by themselves. Cleaning, sewing clothes, farming for food, trading goods. All of it, they did alone, day after day, while their so-called husband treated them with utmost cruelty. Subaru, no, 0, before we go looking for them, can you show me your authority? Beatrice suddenly asked, curiosity evident in her voice. Things had happened so fast, he hadn't yet taken the time to properly examine his new authority of sloth that he acquired from Patelgus. He had felt something latch onto him the moment Sloth's authority was torn apart, but he hadn't tested it until now. Sure, he shrugged, then concentrated. Using an authority was instinctual, it required focus, and inner guidance to fully manifest. Slowly, several spectral hands emerged from in front of him, it felt weird to him. He tested them one by one. With a single hand, he grasped a nearby boulder and hurled it. It rocketed through the air, smashing through several trees before finally stopping. He then summoned more hands, experimenting. When he exceeded 64, a sharp pain pierced through his skull, an apparent limit. So, can you see them, the unseen hands? He asked Beatrice. No, and authorities often differ between users. You should test what unique trait yours possesses, I suppose, she replied thoughtfully. He nodded and attempted to mimic the ability of the Natsuki Subaru, phasing the hands through matter. To his surprise and delight, it worked. If he willed it, the hands could pass through solid objects and directly touch their intended target. The realization exhilarated him. These were invisible hands capable of lifting dozens of tons each, and they could phase through matter with ease. Compared to the standard unseen hands, these were vastly more powerful. Invisible Providence, he murmured, smiling. Let's name this authority Invisible Providence. With this authority, his combat abilities had taken another significant leap forward. Now, he wouldn't need to waste psychic energy on moving things, this power could handle it. He could reserve his psychic energy solely for telepathy and teleportation. Now that the test is complete, let's see if we can find Regulus' wives, he said, activating aura in his eyes to gain aura vision. He grabbed Regulus' bag using Invisible Providence and scanned the area. About a kilometer from here, I can see several aura signatures, dozens, actually, he reported. This new ability of yours is most impressive. You must explain it in detail when we return, I suppose. Beatrice said, clearly fascinated. Sure, he replied, starting to run toward the cluster of auras at a slow pace. He soon reached the location, startling a woman in the process. Who are you? The woman asked, her voice devoid of emotion. Her face was a mask of indifference, as though nothing could faze her. You're one of Regulus' wives, aren't you? He asked. She simply stared at him, her expression unchanged. Yes, she admitted. If you value your life, I suggest you leave immediately. If my husband returns, he'll kill you without hesitation. Subaru chuckled, as if he'd heard a good joke. The woman, however, remained silent. His laugh had drawn the attention of other women nearby. They approached, their eyes fixed on the unfamiliar man. Who is it? Number 187? Asked one of them. An outsider, 187 replied coldly. Two additional women joined the group, though they too remained silent. Shall we inform number 184? Asked 187. Oh man, it kinda hurts my heart hearing you refer to each other by the numbers Regulus assigned you, Subaru said, tossing the floating bag in front of them. They stared at the bag, then back at him, expressionless. Go on, open it. I guarantee you'll be surprised, he said, and 187 hesitantly stepped forward to inspect the bag's contents. She cried out, recoiling in horror. Her emotionless mask shattered as she fell backward in shock. The other women gasped, their expressions breaking for the first time as they gazed upon the dismembered remains of Regulus. Impossible, husband Sama. One woman whispered in disbelief. It must be a fake, another said quickly, trying to regain composure. It isn't, ladies, Subaru said confidently. That man is indeed Regulus Corneas. And he was defeated, by yours truly. They stared at him, unable to comprehend that Regulus could actually lose. How about you gather the rest of the women in the castle? He asked calmly. Could it be, is that really his corpse? 187 thought. She stared at the remains, the reality dawning on her. Very well, I shall gather them, she said, much to the shock of the others. If that really is him, then we might finally be free. And if not, well, death wouldn't be worse than this hell we live in, she thought grimly. Before long, all of Regulus' wives had assembled in the castle's grand hall. Is it true? That body, is that our husband? Asked number 184, her name was Sylphie. Yes, Subaru replied. He's still technically alive, though, just in a coma. Several women shrieked at the revelation. Will he kill us when he wakes? We disobeyed his will, didn't we? Then I guess I will die. They began muttering disturbing things. Ladies, chill out. Why are you all assuming you're going to die? Subaru shouted, snapping them out of their spiraling thoughts. Listen carefully. I'm here to kill him for good. Regulus, authority, the authority of greed, grants him invincibility for 5 seconds. However, he extended that time by sharing his heart with his wives, Subaru explained, shocking them all. Wait, so he was invincible, because of us? Sylphie asked, lips trembling. He nodded solemnly. Unfortunately, yes, that bastard was able to slaughter our families, because of us. She whispered, her voice cracking. Her life, everything, had become a twisted, cruel joke. You're not to blame. His authority worked based on who he perceived as his wives. It had nothing to do with your own desires, Subaru said, bringing a small degree of relief to them. Currently, he paused, pointing toward a woman. She's the one carrying his heart. Number 211's eyes widened in horror. I'm carrying his heart. All the women turned toward her in unison. If I die, then he dies as well, she exclaimed, a manic smile forming on her face as she rushed toward a nearby knife. Subaru intercepted her swiftly. Sigh, it's not your fault. Killing yourself won't solve anything. The heart would just transfer to someone else. Stand here, I will fix it, he said firmly. He used telekinesis to gently lift her into the air, forming a cross-like pose. Concentrating deeply, he released his psychic energy and merged it with aura, forming a detailed 3D map of her inner structure in his mind. Then, using invisible providence, one spectral hand phased directly into her chest, crushing the second heart beating beside hers. Splurt. Regulus' corpse suddenly spewed blood, and the dim light in his eyes flickered out. Husband Sama is dead. One woman whispered, staring in disbelief. At that moment, the greed factor latched onto Subaru. He felt it, something new embedding itself alongside sloth within him. A new authority began to form, rooted in the desires within the orange section of his soul. Using psychic energy and aura allows me to perceive souls, even my own, Subaru thought, watching a dark, star-like fragment attached to his soul's orange aspect. Sloth was attached to the pure white section, the part that was uniquely Subaru, which seemed to be the reason why only he could use that authority. Finishing his soul observation, Subaru gently brought the still floating woman back down. There it is, he began, only to stop mid-sentence as he saw a woman kicking Regulus' corpse. Another soon joined her, stomping repeatedly on one of the severed limbs. Die, 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 she screamed with hysterical laughter. Did she just go full psycho? Subaru shuddered. More women joined in, some spitting on the body, others smeared in blood, laughing through their pain. Sylphie, especially, she was the most unhinged. She bit into a chunk of Regulus flesh and spat it out. You fucker. How dare you kill my family? You deserve worse than this, scum. She shouted. Zero, this is revolting. He must have treated them like disposable pawns for them to become like this, I suppose, Beatrice said, her voice filled with disgust. Ah, Betty, should I let you out? He asked, unsure, watching more women desecrate Regulus remains. I'll stay inside, I suppose, she replied flatly. Not to mention, it's comfy here, she thought, contentedly curling deeper into his soul. He stayed quiet, waiting for the women to calm down. What began as hysterical rage soon gave way to something else, grief. One woman suddenly broke down into tears. Then another. Soon, the room echoed with the sobs of dozens of women, crying like children. Previously they were acting like revenge maniacs, and now they are crying. Subaru didn't understand the complex emotions flowing through them. However, seeing them breaking down, made his heart clutch. He walked over to the loudest girl, Sylphie, and gently wrapped his arms around her. She froze. There, he's gone now. He'll never hurt you again. Ever, he said softly, loudly enough for all of them to hear. He gently patted her back, and she clung to his clothes, drenching them with her tears. Her cries slowly faded into quiet sobs. As he tried to move, she held on tighter, her trembling hands refusing to let go, her face full of desperate reluctance. He sighed, then stepped over to another crying woman, gently hugging her as well and patting her back. You're all safe now. I've killed him for good. So stop crying, and instead, let's laugh. Let's shout it together, victory. Quote. Silence. Okay, I'm officially terrible at comforting women, he thought, embarrassed. Then, someone giggled. Another chuckled. Soon, laughter began to bubble up throughout the hall. Dozens of women laughed, not mockingly, but freely, for the first time in who knows how long. You're horrible at comforting women, one of them said through her laughter. Ouch. Right in the heart, he thought, an imaginary arrow piercing his soul. To be continued. A.N. The proofreader hasn't contracted me yesterday, so I had to edit with I. Don't worry, I proofreaded after editing the chap, so there are no differences between this and the OG chapter. Eamon said he was having a stomach ache. I just hope he is fine. Let's see if he returns by TMRW. Anyway, let's not disappoint him. And keep the power stones rolling. 4-0. 42 comments 0 vote. 40 The doubts of the council. Third POV. Reina van Astria was standing before the council of the wise men, particularly Miklatov and Bordeaux, as she broke the news to them. The beast that haunted the world for 400 years, the white whale, and the sin archbishops of the witch cult, representing greed and sloth, had been slain, she said, earning gasps from them. The white whale had been killed. Not only that, 2 sin archbishops of the witch cult are dead. Miklatov expressed his shock alongside the others. He was the brain of the kingdom, so he knew the best what it meant for an archbishop, much less 2 to die. Archbishops were thought to be invincible, there had been cases of them annihilating cities, and the best of the best losing against them. Even the so-called Archbishop of Pride died only when the divine dragon Volcanica made a move. It showed how great was the death of a sin archbishop. Have you killed them, Miss Reina? Asked Miklatov while stroking his beard. After all, it would make complete sense if Reina has slain them. I would like to inform you that I have not killed them. It was my lord, Sir Zero, who slayed the beast that haunted the world for centuries, she said. Zero. There is no, wait a minute, was it that bodyguard? Asked Miklatov as his eyes narrowed. She smiled and replied, yes, it was Zero who bravely slayed the beast, and brought judgment to the 2 sin archbishops. I have sworn my fealty to him. Her answer shocked everyone, as they never expected for the sword saint to swear her loyalty to someone. Bordeaux's eyes narrowed as he considered the implications of what he had heard. Sword Saint, Reina van Astria was a monster, a catastrophe if unleashed. In fact, more than a decade ago they passed the Reina law, which meant she was not allowed to leave the kingdom unless given the order from the throne itself. She was also not allowed to use any of her divine protections to manipulate people in any way. She was also not allowed to be unchecked, having to give regular reports of what she did. She was chained, and now she has sworn her loyalty to someone completely irrelevant to the kingdom. Bordeaux had searched about Zero's identity after his fame rose by defeating the finest of knights, and what did he found? Nothing, not even a hint from where he came from. This had made him suspicious, and now hearing Sword Saint swearing her loyalty to him. Reina Van Astria, since you have sworn your loyalty to someone, I ask of you. Who will be your first priority? Your liege or the kingdom? His words caused an uneasy silence. Reina Van Astria's face became impassive before forming a smile, one that caused Bordeaux to shudder. It is simple, my first prior. Silence. Miklatov interrupted her. There is no need for such questions. We all know where Sword Saint's loyalty lies, rather we should be worried on how to take the news of the White Whales and Synopsis Bishop's deaths. Reina Van Astria, do you have someone else to testify it? Asked Miklatov. Yes, Lady Crush, Sir Julius, Sir Felix, Sir Wilhelm Van Astria and many other soldiers have seen the corpse of the White Whale, lying beside the flugel tree and they had talked with my liege, confirming he had killed it, she replied. Very well, knights, summon them. As for you Reina, you are dismissed, said Miklatov and she gave a small bow before parting. Miklatov, why did you interrupt her? We must know whether her loyalty is shaking or not, asked Bordeaux. Other sages also looked at him. There is no doubt, her first priority is her lord, Miklatov said, surprising them. Damn it. Then why did you? He stopped as he realized something and became terrified. Do you realize it now? If Sword Saint's loyalty has been truly shaken, and if there is a fallout, what do you think will happen to us? He said. We cannot defeat the Sword Saint, admitted another sage. Yes, we know what kind of monster she is, and if that monster is against us, it can very well destroy our kingdom, Miklatov said. We must approach this situation carefully, we are indeed afraid of the Sword Saint, and we should be considering her abilities. But if we take a radical approach, it will end very bad for us, Miklatov said. What do you suggest, Miklatov? What should we do? Asked Bordeaux. First we must consider why the Sword Saint swore a fealty to someone, who is not even a noble of Lugunica, he said and everyone nodded. Perhaps, he is controlling her. One suggested, horrifying others. If that's the case, then what can we do? Do you think we can take on someone who can slay Sin Archbishops and White Whale and easily control the strongest successor of the Sword Saint? Bordeaux snorted. I truly believe that's not the case. There must be another underlying reason, perhaps admiration, respect her. Miklatov paused for a moment. Love. Love. Sir Miklatov, you surely jest. How could the Sword Saint fall in love? Asked a sage. Ho ho. Nothing is impossible, and if this loyalty is brought by such feelings then some scheme, then it is better. First we must verify about the White Whale's demise, and then see Zero's stance and try to tie down him to Lugunica if we must, he explained. What better way to tie him down, other than to confer him a title of nobility? Bordeaux grinned. At the same time, we must secretly prepare for the fallout with the saint, Miklatov said, causing everyone to become serious. We must not try to have a fallout with the Sword Saint at all costs, only as a last resort. If we can control Zero, we can control the Sword Saint, Miklatov said. We shall discuss the measures later. It is not as if we do not have dozens of measures for the Sword Saint, Bordeaux snorted. Very well, first we should confirm the deaths of the White Whale and the Sin Archbishops. They nodded, everyone getting ready to do their parts. To be continued. I got random MF to get the proofreading since Eamon is missing and he asked for it. I hope Eamon returns. Meanwhile, let's remain as the king for this week. The story meanwhile is getting spicy at chap 7 and 8. 36 comments, 0 vote. 41. How did we get to this? Third Pav. How did we get to this? Subaru wondered as he looked around. Sylphie was drooling on his left shoulder, another girl was sleeping peacefully on his right shoulder sitting next to him and another woman was lying on his lap. Many women were lying all around him. Number 227. The blood is cleaned, said a woman. The other woman nodded, and then looked at Subaru who was covered in regulus blood that he got from the women snuggling to him. You all, wake up. To make such a mess of our savior's clothes. Number 227 snapped. The women woke up. Sylphie yawned and rubbed her cheek against Subaru's shoulder. Is this what they call a harem, I suppose? Beatrice asked emotionlessly, however one could tell she was jealous. Why are so many women after my contractor? If not for the fact all the women had gone through so much pain and trauma, she would have started blasting El Minya. I am sorry, we had soiled your clothes, Sylphie said with guilt, having regained her mind. She also blushed realizing how close she was to Subaru. Don't worry, you all have been through a lot. Let's all clean up, take a bath and prepare to leave this place, Subaru said, patting while her head. She felt her heart beating rapidly. Unlike her self-proclaimed husband Regulus, she preferred to have Subaru as her husband. Subaru was so caring towards her. Sir Zero, let us help you to take a bath, suddenly a woman suggested, as if a trigger was pulled. All women's eyes were fixed on Subaru, who shuddered. No need. He quickly used aura and all the blood stains vanished from his clothes as if they never existed, even the foul smell was gone. All the women's faces fell, their disappointment was immeasurable and their day was ruined. There is no way I would take a bath with them. Last thing I want is to evolve the entire situation into some sort of orgy. He thought. He knew that these women were being pretty affectionate with him. Some might have already fallen in love with him, however he doesn't want to take advantage of the situation when they are so much emotionally disturbed. Some had their entire families slaughtered by that man. How the fuck will their dead families feel if they knew their savior is doing their daughter or wife from behind, while surrounded by several other women? Thus, Reina was saved from the fate of becoming a cuck. Reina finally returned, manifesting by Subaru's side. She looked around to find many women, some of who were surprised by her sudden appearance. Don't worry, she is my knight, and her name is Reina, Subaru said waving his hands, and they calmed down. My liege, are they? Yes, they are that Synopsis bishop's wives. Right now, they are preparing to leave, he said. It will take a considerable amount of effort to return them to their homes, said Reina. Yeah, I have a plan for that, he said, and suddenly Betty came out and yawned. I had a good sleep, I suppose, she said, and then looked at her contractor. Say Betty, do you have any way to get them out of here? Subaru asked his trustworthy lowly spirit. I can teleport them to my library, however it would take a huge amount of mana, I suppose, Beatrice said, not betraying her contractor's trust. Fantastic. Mana is the last thing that I am deprived of. Subaru grinned, and grabbing the lowly's hand he injected a huge amount of mana in her. Suddenly there was silence. Subaru had a blank look, and so did Reina, however their internal thoughts were very different. While Reina was wondering whether to draw her sword, Subaru felt guilty for making Beatrice like this. Reina, there is nothing in this world that my sword cannot solve. Beatrice, somewhat embarrassed, didn't think much of the incident, instead she looked at Subaru with shining eyes. My contractor is the best. In fact, she looked at him happily, as it was the first time in her life that she had gotten so much mana at once after 400 years. Subaru sighed in relief and asked, do you need more mana? It is more than enough to send these women to the mansion, I suppose. Good. Reina, let's talk about what happened with the wise men once we finish rescuing them. Finally, after a while, all the women had gathered. Okay, everyone. I have something important to ask of you all, Subaru said, Beatrice and Reina standing by each of his sides. First, we will be going to a mansion where I live, and after that it will be up to you on what to do next, Subaru said. Many of them had sad expressions after hearing his words, while some were still emotionless, unable to recover from trauma as well. So I have a proposal for all of you. You see, I am going to start a company. A merchant group, if you understand, and I will need a lot of employees, so how about you being the first batch of my employees? He said, surprising not only them but also Reina and Beatrice. Of course, it is for those who have nowhere to go, or don't want to return back to their homes. If you want to leave, I will help you to return to your homes after a few days, he said in a measured tone. Almost all of their families were slaughtered, they had no place to return. Even if they had somewhere to return, they didn't want to. A few were forced to be abandoned due to the witch cult's threat. They had formed a bond with the other women who shared the same fate, they were akin to sisters now. Is it okay, Lord Zero? We don't know much about trading, and how to handle such qualified work, a woman said. Don't worry, you all will get the training for free, Subaru smiled. It wasn't the modern world, where you need over-the-top class education for something which can be learned by a few months of training. Not to mention, since he had saved them, their loyalty will be guaranteed. They were the best employees, and since it will help both of them, it was a win-win situation. Many women were deeply moved by his proposal, some even almost had hearts in their eyes as they looked at him. Seeing the group of beautiful women staring at Subaru as if looking at their future husband, Reina's bitch-o-meter went haywire. She quickly got in front of Subaru and said, I am Reina van Astria, and the loyal knight of Lord Zero. I promise, for those who want to return to their past lives, I will give my full support. Although Reina wasn't the current head of Astria family, she was filthy rich. Even the 2,000 holy gold coins that Subaru got from the clown was just a mere drop in the bucket in front of her resources. So, she was more than ready to take it upon herself to send these hot women away from her lord. She thought at least half of them would choose to return, but unfortunately for her, expectations never met reality. Only 4 women out of 79 were willing to return back to their homes as their parents were forced to abandon them. However, the rest of them decided to stay. Out of nowhere she got an additional 75 competitors. To be continued. The 8th chap is almost finished, which extends this story to the 60th chap. And man, in chap 8th, Subaru goes through another important power growth. Especially his authority of lust, it is quite powerful. Any guesses? Any? By the way, let's be king for this week as well. So yeah, give me your power stones and I shall give you chaps. 33 comments, 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Acros_0. Download app now. 42. Release her. ... Third person POV. That's the last one, Subaru announced, counting as the final woman, carrying her belongings and other essentials, crossed into the library. She gave Subaru a grateful bow before moving further inside. HMPH. Far too many footprints in my precious library. Who is going to clean this mess, I suppose? Beatrice pouted, her small arms crossed as she scowled at the now dirtied floor of the once pristine library. Isn't there some kind of magic that can clean all this? Subaru asked skeptically, raising an eyebrow. However, Beatrice simply sighed. If there were magic spells for every little inconvenience, I would have already found you, dragged you here, and made you my contractor a long time ago. In fact, she grumbled with a slight huff. All right then. I guess I'll have to try something myself, Subaru said with a shrug. He quickly found a bag made from rough fabric lying around. Channeling his telekinesis skill, he created an artificial vacuum by manipulating the air, sucking all the dust, dirt, and debris scattered across the floor neatly into the bag. There, all done, Subaru declared after finishing, dusting off his hands with a small sense of satisfaction. Reina, who had been watching intently, clapped her hands excitedly. That was amazing, as expected of my lord. His finesse extends even to cleaning duties. She praised him enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling with admiration. At this rate, even if he were to just sneeze, she'd still find a reason to praise him, Beatrice thought, twitching her eyebrows in mild exasperation. Nevertheless, she quickly masked her expression and puffed out her chest. Well, as expected of my contractor, I suppose, Beatrice added, giving her own praise, changing her colors. Subaru looked at the two of them, completely speechless. He could only pinch the bridge of his nose, trying to calm himself from the overwhelming, almost ridiculous amount of praise he was receiving. Suddenly, a loud, desperate cry echoed through the mansion. Without hesitation, Subaru grabbed Beatrice and bolted towards the source of the scream, his heart pounding. Reina immediately followed after them, her sword hand twitching reflexively. They raced through the halls and burst into the kitchen, only to find a chaotic scene unfolding before them. Standing there was a woman wearing a maid's uniform, her blonde hair tied neatly behind her, and her green eyes filled with tension. She had one of the women hostage, gripping her firmly by the arm. Tell me, why the hell are all of you here? The maid growled, her voice firm and demanding, though the confusion in her eyes was evident. However, her expression quickly shifted to one of shock upon seeing Beatrice, and beside her, Zero and Reina. Release her. Quickly, Subaru said, his tone sharp and full of irritation. How could things go so wrong within just a few minutes of taking his eyes off the situation? Do as my contractor commands, Beatrice added firmly, her voice carrying undeniable authority. The maid, Frederica, recognized Beatrice immediately. Although she hadn't seen Reina or Subaru Zero before, Beatrice's presence was enough to make her reconsider her actions. Quickly, Frederica released the woman, who fled to another panicked woman standing nearby. Aye, what is going on here? Frederica finally asked, looking bewildered. Subaru rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. Let me guess. You're one of the maids working here. Yes, that's correct, Frederica answered, giving a respectful bow. I am Frederica Bowman, one of the head maids of this mansion. A few days ago, I was called here by Ram to assist with household duties, as the workload was becoming overwhelming for her alone. Subaru gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Got it. You must be Lord Zero if I am not wrong, Frederica guessed and Subaru nodded. Frederica turned her attention to Reina, who she did not recognize. Although she had heard tales of the famous Sword Saint, she had never seen her in person. And frankly, she hadn't expected the Sword Saint to appear here, of all places. I am Reina van Astria, the current Sword Saint and a loyal knight sworn to Lord Zero. Reina introduced herself proudly, deliberately emphasizing her loyalty as she raised her voice slightly, shooting a proud look at Subaru. Frederica's mouth fell open in shock. She looked between Reina and Subaru in utter disbelief, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. I am also Zero's contracted spirit, in fact, Beatrice declared smugly, grinning wide as she dropped yet another bombshell onto the poor maid. Frederica opened and closed her mouth several times, resembling a fish out of water. No words came out. What was she even supposed to say to all of this? Sensing Frederica's distress, Subaru quickly decided to defuse the situation. Anyway, why don't we move to the guest room? I'll explain everything properly there. Also, he added, turning to the women who had been held hostage, are you all right? You aren't hurt, are you? We were startled, but we are fine. No injuries at all. Thank you so much for your concern, Lord Zero, the woman who had been grabbed answered gratefully, bowing her head. Subaru smiled slightly, relieved to hear they were unharmed. Meanwhile, several other women had gathered around the kitchen doorway, peeking inside with worried faces, clearly wondering where the earlier scream had come from. Seeing the gathering commotion, Subaru sighed deeply once again. Could he not catch a single break today? After patiently reassuring everyone and clarifying the misunderstanding, the women finally returned to their tasks, preparing dinner for everyone as originally intended. Subaru led Frederica into the guest room, sitting down comfortably on a large sofa. Beatrice perched herself casually on his lap, and Reina sat closely by his side, both acting like it was the most natural thing in the world. Subaru began explaining the entire situation to Frederica, who listened intently. I see, Frederica said thoughtfully after he finished. When I saw those women entering the kitchen with large bags, I found it extremely suspicious and acted purely on instinct. Thankfully, I didn't hurt them. We brought a significant amount of food supplies from the castle's storage to ensure the women would not face any shortages once they relocated here, Subaru explained, understanding the source of the confusion now that everything was laid out. I shall apologize to them later, Frederica said sincerely, bowing her head in remorse. Furthermore, I will personally help organize their accommodations. This mansion is large enough to offer comfortable lodging to all of them for the time being. However, she added thoughtfully, once the others return, we will likely need to discuss a more permanent solution regarding their residence. Reina nodded in agreement, but her expression grew a bit colder as she turned to Frederica. We shall address that when the time comes. For now, in the absence of Lord Rosewall Mathers, Lord Zero will be acting as the current master of this mansion, she declared with an edge of warning in her voice. Frederica immediately straightened up, realizing her mistake. I see. Then, please forgive me for my earlier discourtesy, she said, standing up and bowing once again respectfully. Subaru waved his hand dismissively, smiling warmly. No need for all that formal stuff. Just treat me like a friend. There's no need to stress yourself out over something so trivial. Honestly, Subaru had no intention of becoming one of those prideful nobles whose arrogance was bigger than their penis. Ayu. Anyway, he continued with a relaxed sigh, let's not dwell on it too much. For now, let's just take it easy and relax a little. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, a different kind of commotion was beginning to brew back in the royal capital of Lugnica. To be continued. A.N. Had to edit with I and then proofread again. I changed some lines and now it matches my story 95% perfectly. The rest of the 5% went to explaining everything in detail, so yeah, it is 99% equal to what I have written. Man, I miss Eamon, he was doing such a nice proofreading job also. Also, we aren't first. I am kinda disappointed. But listen me out, do you want stable updates for a longer period of time, or immense fun for a short period of time? I am just 1k words from finishing the 8th chap by the way. We are currently in the 6th chap. So yeah, let's be in top while we can. I don't ask for you to give me Power Stones selflessly when I am not uploading a single chap any week, however I do expect support when I am uploading chaps. You don't want it to be another Fate Poseidon, right? Evil smirk. 31 comments 0 vote. 43 report bonus chap. ... Third POV. Indeed, the corpse of the white whale now lies beside the great tree of Flugel, reported Julius, kneeling respectfully before the assembled sage council. I see. Do you support this claim as well, Sir Felix? One of the council members inquired. Naya. Yes, sire. Lady Crush herself has personally verified the words spoken by Lord Zero, Felix replied, confirming his words. Crush stood silently behind him and nodded in confirmation. Still, I do wonder, Anastasia interjected with a harmless smile curving her lips, how such important news traveled so swiftly. Perhaps we can offer an explanation, Bordeaux said, stepping forward, clearly preparing to drop a revelation. It was Lady Reina who brought the information to us. She has sworn her loyalty not to Lady Amelia, but to Lord Zero, Miklatov stated, watching their expressions intently. There was a ripple of surprise among them, though it was nothing compared to the stunned silence that spread across the faces of the wise men. The wise men, however, noticed the reactions and read between the lines, though they chose not to question them further. Very well then, one of the sages finally declared. Lady Crush, I request that several of your knights accompany the royal knights and recover the carcass of the white whale. It shall serve as undeniable proof of its subjugation. It shall be done, Crush replied, her voice composed, yet a bitter edge remained beneath her formal tone. Whether it was being rejected by Zero, or being used merely as a tool to verify her rival's accomplishment, the taste was bitter either way. The news that Reina had pledged her allegiance to Zero was troubling, not only for her, but also for Anastasia. It shifted the delicate balance of power. The two had anticipated the possibility of such an outcome and had formed an alliance to prepare for it. Unfortunately, what they had feared had now come to pass. After a brief and quiet exchange, the meeting concluded. The group dispersed, later gathering again in a private lounge to speak more candidly. It has been a long and taxing day, Wilhelm sighed deeply. The course of the royal selection had changed drastically in mere hours. Tell me, Julius, Anastasia asked, a mischievous twinkle in her eyes, do you like that man? What a strange question to ask, my lady. I would think no one particularly likes the man who soundly defeated them, Julius replied with a small chuckle, though a flicker of unease lingered in his eyes. The memory of his defeat was still fresh, and he knew full well how close he had come to being permanently crippled during their battle. Yes, that was rather an insensitive question for me to ask. Please forgive my thoughtlessness, Anastasia said with a soft smile. Julius fell silent for a moment, his mind wandering. Initially, he had disliked Zero, his arrogance, his bold declaration of being Amelia's knight, his open disdain for noble customs. Zero had openly criticized the entire nobility and the royal knights in front of the royal selection committee. Julius had been incensed and took it upon himself to confront him, telling himself it was for the sake of protecting decorum and preventing others from taking matters into their own hands. He claimed to act to prevent unnecessary conflict, to preserve order, to correct Zero's impertinence, perhaps that was true. But somewhere during the fight, he forgot all of that. He became consumed with pride, and ultimately, he paid the price. His honor. It now lay in pieces, shattered by his defeat at the hands of Subaru, no, Zero. Seriously though, Anastasia said, her tone returning to a more serious edge, with the sword saint herself swearing fealty to that man, we need to rethink our strategy from the ground up. Our carefully laid plan to defeat the white whale, it completely failed, Crush said bitterly, her hands clenching into trembling fists. Even Wilhelm, stoic as he was, felt a powerful wave of emotion rise within him. Forgive me, Sir Wilhelm. I failed to give you the chance to avenge your beloved wife, Crush said quietly, bowing her head deeply before the aged swordsman. Please, my lady, rise. This is not your fault in the slightest, Wilhelm responded solemnly. I suppose this is simply the fate I must endure. His eyes, usually calm and resolute, now glistened with sorrow. Perhaps, this is the judgment I deserve, for the years I spent turning my back on my own granddaughter, Wilhelm said, his mind recalling the harsh truths Subaru had thrown at him. Shame welled up in his heart as he reflected upon all that he had done, or rather, failed to do, for his granddaughter. I believe you should make an effort to mend that relationship, Anastasia said gently. Remaining at odds with the Amelia camp won't benefit us in the long run. She continued, the truth that one of Amelia's supporters was the one who brought down the white whale will soon be revealed to the world once the evidence is confirmed. And even if the wise men chose not to question us about the two Sin archbishops, that information will become public eventually. It was plain to see that for both personal and political reasons, Wilhelm needed to reconcile with Reina. In any case, Anastasia said, shifting the conversation, I've made a decision. Unless either of you have some grand strategy in mind, my camp will be departing for Kararagi tomorrow morning. You're not interested in discussing how to counter the Amelia camp's momentum? Crush asked, frowning. To be perfectly honest, there's not much more we can do at this stage. We need to divert our attention and pursue a different course, something that will boost our popularity in another way, Anastasia explained with a shrug. I see, Crush said, her voice quiet with resignation. To be continued. So yeah, let's be in top 1 this week again. 26 comments 0 vote. 44 The Sanctuary's Barrier. ... Third POV. The following day, Subaru prepared to depart for the sanctuary, especially considering that Amelia and the others had yet to return. Before he left, Frederica handed Subaru a special necklace, an artifact designed to guide him safely into the sanctuary's bounds. After exchanging a few final words with the Regulus wives, who all tilted their heads cutely and listened to his instructions like obedient little children, Subaru set off. Accompanying him on this journey were Beatrice and Reina. As they traveled, Beatrice clutched Subaru's hand tightly, her usual composure slightly disturbed. Is something troubling you, Betty? Subaru asked gently, noticing her discomfort. Beatrice didn't respond verbally. Instead, she sent him a telepathic message, her voice soft and vulnerable within his mind. The sanctuary, it is the graveyard of my mother. I'm not sure how to feel, now that I've broken the contract that bound me. Don't worry about it, Subaru replied reassuringly, with a mental grin. If she dares try to push you around from beyond the grave, I'll make sure she gets a proper punishment, for being a very bad girl. A.N. Smack smack. Beatrice gave a small nod. She believed Subaru was simply trying to comfort her with humor, but his sincerity still warmed her heart. Meanwhile, Reina was at the reins, guiding the carriage skillfully. As they approached the entrance to the sanctuary, she suddenly pulled the reins, bringing the vehicle to a halt. She peeked through the curtain into the carriage and reported calmly, Lord Zero, I'm detecting a barrier directly ahead of us. Subaru stepped down from the carriage, Beatrice beside him, and surveyed the path. This must be the sanctuary's protective barrier, he concluded. He extended his hand toward the invisible wall and his hand passed through without any hindrance. Then to test the limits of the barrier, Subaru summoned his yin sword, the blade manifesting with a shimmer of dark energy, and made a clean cut in the space before them, slicing through dimensions. Yet the barrier healed immediately, the spatial wound closing itself, mending as if it had never been harmed. Subaru frowned. He returned the yin sword to its place, and in that instant, a portal materialized at his chest. A hilt slowly emerged from within the swirling vortex. With a firm grip, he drew out the life sword, its aura thrumming with power. This time, he slashed at the barrier again. Unlike before, the effect was drastic, the magical wall shattered like fragile glass, the pieces dissolving into the air, leaving a wide gap. I understand now, Subaru said, studying the fading fragments. This barrier isn't spatial, it's spiritual. Attacks based purely on destruction or elemental magic won't affect it. You need to counteract it at the source, on a spiritual level. TCH. If only I could draw my sword from its sheath, I could have obliterated this barrier myself, Reina muttered with frustration, her voice sharp. There's no need for such tension, Beatrice interjected, stepping forward. I am well acquainted with the nature and mechanics of the sanctuary's barrier. In fact, allow me to explain. She raised a hand, pausing for dramatic effect before speaking. Firstly, this barrier makes it incredibly difficult for outsiders to enter the sanctuary. Secondly, and more importantly, it prevents anyone with mixed blood from leaving the sanctuary's confines, Beatrice explained with precision. Wait a minute, are you saying that even someone with the slightest trace of demi-human ancestry will be trapped inside and unable to leave? Subaru asked, brows furrowing with concern. He had been vaguely aware of this detail, but he never knew the full extent of it. Beatrice nodded solemnly. Yes, that's correct. Only those who are fully human or fully demi-human can cross the boundary unimpeded. Any individual with even a minimal amount of mixed heritage would be unable to exit, and attempting to do so would result in their death, in fact. Reina gasped as realization struck her. Wait, that means many of the villagers won't be able to leave. Lugunika's population is largely mixed blood. Many citizens have both human and demi-human ancestors. Subaru nodded. Yet Rosewall believed this place was a suitable refuge. He must have had some other motive in mind. Reina narrowed her eyes, her suspicions growing. I believe I may have some insight into that motive, Beatrice said hesitantly, drawing the attention of both Subaru and Reina. She hesitated for a moment longer, then decided to reveal the truth. Beatrice, myself, is an artificial spirit of yin, a construct created by none other than the Witch of Greed, Echidna, she revealed with quiet gravity. Witch of Greed, Reina interrupted abruptly, her expression turning wary as she took a cautious step back and eyed Beatrice suspiciously. Reina, Subaru called her name gently but firmly. I already know the truth about Beatrice, at least, most of it. I trust her completely. Please don't make this difficult for her. Reina looked at Subaru for a moment, then slowly let out a breath. The coldness in her eyes melted slightly. Forgive me for my outburst, then. Lady Beatrice, please do continue. Beatrice gave a small nod and continued. Mother, Echidna, gave us 2 books of wisdom. They were the original prototypes of what later became the witch cult's Gospels. These books provide us with the events of the future, though not always complete. Reina was visibly stunned by this revelation, though Subaru remained composed, having heard part of it before. Rosewall A. Mathers, the current head of the Mathers household, is descended from Mother's disciple, the original Rosewall. Each generation has inherited the goal the original Rosewall set for them. I was given one of the books to guide me in finding that person, the one destined to inherit the Forbidden Library and become my contractor, Beatrice explained, glancing at Subaru. She hesitated once more, then added softly, but he never came. Perhaps it was a test that I failed. Still, I'm glad that in the end, I formed a contract with Subaru. Subaru reached out and gently patted her head to comfort her. Beatrice smiled back and resumed. On the other hand, Rosewall's family had a different mission passed down through the ages. His plan is to resurrect Mother, Echidna. That purpose has persisted for generations. Resurrect her? How would he even do that? Reina asked with a deep frown. I'm not entirely sure, Beatrice admitted. The method is likely recorded in his own book of wisdom. However, if I'm not mistaken, both Subaru and Lady Amelia should be crucial part of his plan. To involve my lord in his evil scheme. It is absolutely unforgivable, Reina exclaimed, her fists clenched with fury. Calm yourself, Reina, Subaru said, his tone steady. I have a plan. For now, let's play along, act unaware of everything. We'll assess the situation inside the sanctuary. Once everyone's safety is confirmed, we can decide how to proceed. Beatrice nodded in agreement. Reina looked at Subaru, then suddenly knelt before him. Forgive me, my liege. I've been acting recklessly lately. She had always been calm, calculating, and composed. But ever since she encountered Subaru, something had changed within her. The emotions she had long bottled up seemed to erupt uncontrollably. Worry for Subaru's well-being had made her impulsive. It's all right, Subaru said with a warm smile. Also, when we're in private, just call me, Zero. You may be my knight, but you're also my dear and precious friend. Reina bowed her head slightly and smiled. Understood, Zero. And one more thing, Subaru added, raising a finger. Don't call me by my real name anymore, not even in private. Until the threat of gluttony is eliminated, I can't afford to expose any weakness. Beatrice blushed, mildly embarrassed as she was getting comfortable with calling him by his real name. Got it, Zero, Reina replied, steeling herself. She resolved then and there to regain her composure. Reacting emotionally to everything was putting a strain on her lord, and she wouldn't allow that anymore. After finalizing their plan and discussing a few contingencies, the trio resumed their journey toward the sanctuary. To be continued. 28 comments 0 vote. 45 panic. ... Third POV. The moment they passed through the barrier, the necklace around Subaru's neck began to glow with a radiant light. In the next instant, they had bypassed all the traps and were teleported to a safe location within the sanctuary. However, the force of the teleportation was so intense that it almost knocked Beatrice unconscious. Subaru, meanwhile, felt a presence rapidly approaching. Reina sensed it too and quickly dismounted from the carriage. Get lost, you bastards! A voice roared, and Garfield came charging toward them like a mad beast, his eyes wild with fury. He leapt at Reina, fully intent on incapacitating her with a single, devastating blow. His fist came crashing down at her with a force that created sonic booms in its wake, his body moving so fast it was barely a blur. He expected her head to explode like a watermelon from the impact, to end her life instantly. But contrary to his expectations, Reina calmly raised her arm and caught his fist in midair. The earth beneath her remained unshaken. The soil that should have been blown away from the impact was untouched. Her body didn't move a single inch. Garfield was stunned beyond belief. His eyes widened in horror. And then, before he could react further, Reina retaliated. She threw a punch, a simple one, without any technique or flourish. It struck his chest squarely. A sickening crack echoed as several of his ribs fractured, blood gushed from his mouth, and then she grabbed him by the neck, holding him effortlessly. Tell me who you are and why you attacked us, Reina demanded in a cold, unwavering voice. Wait a minute, I know him. I think, Beatrice murmured, squinting. Subaru nodded. Doesn't he look like Frederica? You know my sister. Garfield choked out between coughs of blood, writhing in pain. Reina released his neck, letting him drop to the ground with a thud. More blood poured from his mouth as he coughed violently. Hey, do something. He's going to die at this rate. Subaru shouted in panic. He didn't want Frederica's brother to die, not like this. Beatrice hurried to his side and cast healing magic. Within moments, Garfield's breathing steadied and his complexion improved. You're amazing, Betty, Subaru said, giving her a big thumbs up. Meanwhile, Reina turned to Subaru and bowed deeply. I apologize, she said, her voice laced with frustration. She wanted to cry. Why was she always messing things up? She prided herself on being a good knight. Maybe not as perfect as Julius, but still. There's no need to apologize, Reina. You acted to protect us, Subaru said reassuringly. Besides, he tried to kill us the moment we arrived. It's his fault. He knew that Garfield's punch could have easily killed a normal person. He deserved that punch, for his intentions. You did the right thing. Subaru gently patted her head. Good girl, he praised. Reina's face turned crimson. Her brain short-circuited. Reina.x has stopped working. And with that, she collapsed backward. Reina! Subaru shouted in alarm. Thus, Subaru became the first person to defeat the world's strongest with nothing but kind words. Not even 1 million divine protections could have predicted that XD. Reina later held the reins of the ground dragon, sensing a village nearby. Soon, their carriage rolled into the settlement, drawing wary eyes from the villagers who watched with suspicion. A woman stepped in front of the carriage. It was Rem. Her eyes widened in surprise upon seeing Reina driving. Reina's standing was equal to her lord's, perhaps even above it, should she inherit the Asteria household. For her to drive the carriage, suddenly meant something. However, Rem decided not to put her nose into it. Subaru disembarked from the carriage alongside Beatrice, and before he could say anything, 5 glowing orbs of mana rushed toward him. Father! Gloria cried as she crashed into him, hugging him tightly. It is wonderful to see you return, Father, Agni added joyfully. Hooray! Father is back, Aqua cheered, spinning in delight. It is nice to have you back, Father, said the calm and collected Sylphie. I missed you, Father, Gia said quietly. Both Reina and Beatrice stood still, utterly gobsmacked at the scene. Why your quasi-spirits? They've all become full-fledged spirits? Beatrice asked, stunned. Reina nodded, just as confused. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that, Subaru said with a sheepish grin. Reina leaned in to study the spirits more closely, clearly intrigued. Beatrice, on the other hand, suddenly felt a pang of inferiority. I am still a great spirit, she thought, puffing her chest with renewed pride. She was Subaru's only great spirit, the best one, in fact. Unfortunately for her, copium could only last that long. So this is Father's new spirit, huh? Looks weak to me, Gloria said. Just so you know, Betty is a great spirit. In fact, she's way better than any of you low-tier spirits. Beatrice snapped, clearly offended. This concubine is far more valuable than a great spirit who leeches mana from Father, Gloria replied coldly. An invisible arrow of humiliation pierced Beatrice's heart. I'm still smarter and stronger than all of you. Beatrice retorted. We can give mana to Father and support him without becoming a burden. Your weak body only makes you an easier target, Gloria said without mercy. Another invisible arrow struck Beatrice's pride. As an artificial spirit, she was technically easier to destroy than regular spirits. A strong physical strike was all it took, unlike natural spirits who required powerful magic to be dispelled. In simple words, she was a glass cannon. Subaru watched their heated exchange in speechless awe. Even Rem appeared amused. All right, that's enough. I understand that you might not get along, and I'm not going to force it. But you will not fight each other, Subaru said firmly, his voice filled with authority. Seeing Subaru reprimand Gloria made her spirits dim slightly. This concubine understands, Father, she replied, pouting and turning away. Betty will prove she's not a burden. Betty is the best great spirit there is. Beatrice bowed silently, a spark of determination igniting within her. The other spirits retreated into Subaru, merging with him once more and moaning softly in delight, while Beatrice chose to remain outside, visibly sulking. Lord Zero, Lady Reina, and Lady Beatrice, please follow me inside, Rem said with a graceful bow. Subaru tugged gently at Reina's sleeve and whispered something in her ear once Rem looked away. She gave a small nod in response. Inside the residence, Ram stood quietly beside a bed, while Rosewall lay upon it, completely wrapped in bandages. Rosewall's face darkened upon seeing Reina enter, but he quickly composed himself. I presume the witch cultists are, Diad? He asked slowly. Subaru nodded. Yes, every last one of them has been eliminated. Now tell me, why are you covered in bandages, and where's Amelia? It's a long story, Rosewall drawled. Well, go ahead, we've got all the time in the world, Subaru replied. Reina, those bandages are fake, right? Subaru asked telepathically. Without a doubt, Reina responded in kind. You see, this place is a witch's graveyard. A graveyard? For a witch? Subaru asked calmly. Rosewall narrowed his eyes. Yes, the Witch of Greed, Echidna, met her end here. She created the sanctuary and the barrier. It prevents anyone with mixed blood from leaving. And since 1/3 of the villagers might have mixed heritage, we're trapped. Normally, Reina would have questioned why he allowed them to take refuge here in the first place. But she remained silent. The only way to break the barrier is to pass a special trial. However, only certain individuals are able to take it, and this is the result of me trying, he said, gesturing to his bandages. And who are these certain individuals? Subaru asked. Those with mixed blood having both human and demi-human heritage, Rosewall answered. But the villagers don't fully know who among them qualifies. And the people living here aren't exactly eager to volunteer. So, Amelia had to take the trial. She's taking it right now, isn't she? Subaru asked, already certain. Rosewall nodded in confirmation. Rem, please take us to the trial grounds. Rosewall, we also brought Garfield. He's unconscious in the carriage. You'll want to deal with him, Subaru added. Rosewall gave a nod, and Ram turned to go handle it, though a look of pure disgust crossed her face upon hearing Garfield's name. And with that, they departed, leaving Rosewall behind, who was filled with panic. To be continued. A.N. Okay, give me your power stones now. 47 comments, 0 vote. 46 meeting Echidna. ... Third person Pav. Rem guided them toward the sanctuary's trial grounds. Standing before the ancient structure, they all took a moment to observe its worn, moss-covered exterior, the creeping vines giving it an eerie but sacred air. If a pure human or demi-human enters, the result will be the same as what happened to Lord Rosewall, Rem explained solemnly, still convinced her master was suffering from grievous injuries. My liege, I shall enter and assess the situation for potential dangers, Reina offered, stepping forward with resolve. Reina, there's no need, Subaru interrupted, raising a hand to stop her. If you go in and somehow break the mechanism of sanctuary, it could result in the destruction of the entire sanctuary. It's too risky. Her confident smile faltered for the first time in her life. Never before had she been told not to do something because she was too powerful. The realization hit her unexpectedly. She was suffering from success. I understand, she said quietly. Subaru turned toward his companions and summoned his contracted spirits. You all wait outside. I'll go in alone. If I don't come out right away, don't panic, it just means I've been deemed eligible to undergo the trial, he explained, reassuring each one of them with a calm tone. Very well, father. This concubine shall wait patiently for your safe return, Gloria responded with a respectful bow. Okay. Yup. Understood. With a nod, Subaru entered the sanctuary. The interior was dim and quiet, and he soon found Amelia unconscious, lying on the cold stone floor with a terrified expression etched on her face. As he hurried toward her, something tugged at his consciousness. He could have resisted, but he didn't. He allowed it to pull him away, his body going limp as he collapsed beside her. Natsuki Subaru opened his eyes to find himself in a place resembling the Windows XP desktop background, a rolling green field under a flawless blue sky. Ahem. In reality, he was now within the realm that housed the souls of the deceased witches, though why it looked like Microsoft's default wallpaper was anyone's guess. Greetings, Natsuki Subaru, came a voice, serene and melodic. He turned to see a stunning woman with flowing white hair and jet black eyes. Her porcelain skin was unblemished, and the elegant jade and black hairpin in her hair only added to her captivating charm. In a word, hot. In 2 words, freaking hot. But instead of awe, Subaru's expression was laced with irritation. Normally, I'd ask where I am, but instead, what the hell is wrong with you? He demanded sharply. Echidna blinked, visibly confused. This was not how she had expected their first meeting to go. You left that poor girl alone for 400 years waiting for a guy who doesn't even exist, he said, voice heavy with anger. Understanding dawned on her face. Ah, you're referring to Beatrice and the contract. Subaru sat in the chair across from her with purpose. Exactly. The Witch of Greed gave a slight smirk. It was a fascinating experiment, really. I wanted to see if she would act on her own will. To be honest, she was a disappointment. Subaru narrowed his eyes but said nothing as she quickly shifted the subject. Anyway, that's a matter for another time. For now, why not have some tea? She gestured to the cup on the table before him. He knew exactly what it was, her bodily fluid. But drinking it was necessary to adapt to her miasma. The last thing he wanted was to go insane out of hygienic pride. Without hesitation, he downed the cup in one gulp. Oh, you drank it without a second thought. She exclaimed with amused surprise. You didn't even question if something might be mixed in. If you're foolish enough to poison me, the sword saint waiting outside will give your graveyard a nice makeover, he replied flatly. Her eyebrow twitched as the mental image of a furious sword saint annihilating her entire graveyard crossed her mind. Well, lucky for me, it wasn't poisoned, she said, then smirked, though it was my saliva. So, an indirect kiss then? She laughed, genuinely entertained. You're quite the amusing one. Is that where your mind goes? Have you fallen for me already? You are undeniably beautiful, Subaru said honestly, but I've seen someone even more beautiful. The faces of Reina and Satella flickered in his mind. Echidna pouted but composed herself. Anyway, let's get to the real reason you're here. You mean granting me permission to undertake the trial? Subaru asked. Yes, but I'm offering more, something far greedier, she said with a gleam in her eyes. I am the Witch of Greed, Echidna, bearer of all the world's knowledge. So tell me, what knowledge do you desire? She proclaimed grandly, rising from her seat with open arms. The peaceful setting shattered like glass. The lush field vanished, replaced by a cosmic void as stars and galaxies swirled around them. Dark silhouettes of other witches began to emerge, each one shrouded in mystery. Perhaps you seek knowledge of Minerva, the Witch of Wrath, whose healing touch brought more ruin than salvation. Or maybe Carmilla, the Witch of Lust, whose beauty toppled empires. Typhon, the Witch of Pride, whose childish sense of justice left devastation in her wake. Or Daphne, the Witch of Gluttony, creator of the great beasts to end hunger, only to birth more suffering. Maybe Sekhmet, the Witch of Sloth, who pushed away the divine dragon beyond the great waterfall just to nap in peace. Or even, myself, Echidna, who in her endless pursuit of wisdom committed sins she still regrets in death. Finally, a thick smog engulfed the space. A dark figure loomed beyond, veiled and mysterious. Or perhaps, Satella, the Witch of Envy, who destroyed half the world and killed the other witches, all for the sake of love, Echidna whispered. The scenery snapped back to its original verdant form. Subaru gave a slow, deliberate clap. Wow, that was dramatic. All we were missing was popcorn. Her expression twitched. This was not the reaction she had expected. Anyway, there is something I want to ask, he said, arms folded. Yes, tell me. Ask me anything, she cried with enthusiasm, practically bouncing in her seat. Finally, a chance to show off her infinite knowledge. She was already planning how to impress him, ready to name the steep price of forbidden truths. Who would win in a fight, Anos or Rimuru? She blinked. Pardon, you heard me. Who's stronger, Anos Voldigoat or Rimuru Tempest? They're fictional characters from my world, he said calmly, crossing one leg over the other. Boy, what kind of question is that? OFC Rimuru wins. She stared at him, mouth opening and closing in confusion. What kind of question? Silence lingered for a moment before she sighed. Ask me anything else, except that, she finally relented. Subaru rose from his chair and began walking away. Where are you going? She asked, clearly distressed. You've shown me just how capable you are, so I am leaving, he said, not looking back. Ask me anything, anything else. I'll show you my worth. She begged. How I am going to answer such a difficult question? Ask me anything else and see how impressed you will be. She pouted. Sorry, but I know everything else I need to. As for what I need to know, you cannot tell me, he said with a face full of regret. She clenched her fists and said with a very nice smile, Jay, just ask me something else. Fine, he said, pausing. Tell me the law of universal gravitation. She stiffened. I know the laws of motion. Of course, because I taught them to Betty. I understand how your authority works now, he said. Fine, you win. But just so you know, you can't leave here without my. Her words caught in her throat as she watched Subaru tear open a rift in her domain using nothing but his psychic energy and aura. Call me when Satella's here, he said before disappearing through the breach. For the first time, the Witch of Greed was left alone to question her own choices. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I absolutely hate you, she screamed, tears streaming down her face like a heartbroken child. But he was already gone. AGHHHHHH. To be continued. Okay, it is a new week. I give you 1 bonus chap if we get in top 20, 2 bonus chap if we get in top 10, or 3 bonus chap if we are in top 3 by the end of the week. That's a promise. Also, I have uploaded an auxiliary chap showing all the progress of our boy, so yeah, sure to see that. 42 comments 0 vote. 47 dear. ... Third person POV. Subaru gazed solemnly at the unconscious Amelia, who lay sprawled on the cold stone floor of the trial chamber. Her face twisted and turned, caught in the throes of a nightmare that refused to let her go. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead as she muttered incoherent words, her body trembling. Suddenly, the glowing symbols etched onto the ancient walls flickered and dimmed, as though the magic sustaining them had abruptly run out. Amelia's eyes snapped open, wild and panicked. She gasped sharply, her pupils dilated in fear. It wasn't me. I'm sorry. Please, forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me, she cried out, voice rising to a hysterical pitch as tears poured down her cheeks. Her chest heaved with each sob. Subaru didn't hesitate. He rushed to her side and gently pulled her into his arms. Amelia, calm down. Calm down. I'm here, he whispered, his voice soft but firm as he tried to steady her erratic breathing. But his words only seemed to intensify her breakdown. She clutched at him, crying louder and more desperately. Then, just as suddenly, her body went limp in his arms. Her consciousness slipped away again, leaving her completely still. He sighed heavily. Carefully, he shifted her into a princess carry and stood up. Outside, Rem was waiting patiently near the entrance. The moment she saw Subaru emerge with the unconscious Amelia in his arms, her expression turned somber. It seems Lady Amelia has failed the trial again, she said softly, her voice tinged with worry. She attempted the first trial yesterday, and this was her second. But, it's not looking good. Subaru nodded. After a moment, he said, whatever, let's take her inside to rest. Rem agreed, and they began walking back toward the residence where Rosewall was currently staying. The spirits surrounding Subaru slowly re-entered his body, their glow fading as they did. As they walked, Rem suddenly remembered something. By the way, Lord Zero, Meili, the Mabeast girl has been kept confined. She's being kept in a room nearby, in one of the adjacent houses. Meili, huh, Subaru muttered, furrowing his brow. Let's hope she doesn't cause any more trouble. Just as they were nearing the house, a figure leapt in front of them, blocking the path. It was a boy, muscular, wild-eyed, and brimming with reckless energy. Hey, fight me, Garfield shouted, smashing his fists together as he glared, not at Subaru, but at Reina, who stood nearby with her usual cold, unreadable expression. Chop, came a sudden sound, followed by a pained yelp. Ram had appeared out of nowhere and landed a sharp karate chop to the back of Garfield's body. You absolute idiot, she said, voice dripping with disdain. If you want to die, go throw yourself into a ditch. Don't pollute the air around me with your presence. Ram, stay out of this. Garfield barked, gritting his teeth. He winced, still clearly nursing old injuries. Subaru, observing the scene, raised an eyebrow, his face a mixture of confusion and disappointment. Your bones are still broken, and you're picking a fight. With Reina, of all people. Yes, Garfield replied, puffing his chest with pride. Subaru rubbed his temples. Is this what idiocy looks like in physical form? He wondered. No, Subaru, don't do it. Don't say it. This isn't one of those over-the-top wuxia fantasies. Don't ruin the moment with that cliché line. A voice in his mind pleaded. Do it. You know you want to. Rem stepped forward, her expression tinged with concern. You do realize that Reina is the current sword saint, the strongest warrior in the world, right? Garfield nodded smugly. Of course. Miss Ram made sure to let me know after I woke up. That's why I have to fight her. If I beat her, I'll be the strongest. Reina remained motionless, her eyes half-lidded with mild disinterest. She didn't respond, only choosing not to dismember Garfield on the spot out of consideration for her lord's wishes. Subaru couldn't hold it in any longer. He placed a hand on Reina's shoulder and stepped forward dramatically. Pointing a finger at Garfield, he narrowed his eyes and, in a grave tone, said, You are courting death. There was a pause. The worst part, Subaru thought, she's not even hot. That would have at least made sense. After saying this line, one of the things in his do list was crossed out. A silent beat passed before the air erupted in reactions. Beatrice, Ram, Rem, even Aqua, all looked at Subaru in stunned silence, eyes wide. You bastard. Did you just say I'm courting death? I don't know what you meant. But are you insulting me? Garfield screamed. His rage flared and his arms transformed into massive beast-like claws. Ram took a step back and muttered, unbelievable. The stupidity is contagious. I need to move before it infects me. I don't care if you fight me or not. Garfield howled. I'll fight you right here and now. In a flash, he broke the sound barrier, launching toward Subaru with a ferocious punch. But Subaru stood firm. With impossible calm, he reached out and caught Garfield's wrist midair. The shockwave of the attack rippled through the ground, scattering dust. Without a word, Subaru stepped forward and headbutted Garfield with such force that the boy's skull audibly cracked. Blood sprayed from Garfield's nose as he crumpled to the ground, completely unconscious. Aqua, Betty, patch this idiot up before he dies from his own foolishness, Subaru said casually. Though I'm not sure even healing magic can fix what's wrong with his head. Aqua popped out cheerfully. Okie dokie, father, she said and started casting a healing spell. Not to be outdone, Beatrice joined in, grumbling, honestly, we have to. He'll only cause more trouble if he dies here, I suppose. Subaru crossed his arms. If he pulls this stunt again, we'll beat him, heal him, and repeat the process until he understands reality. Ram shivered slightly. Not even I would think of such a cruel punishment. Meanwhile, Reina, who had watched the whole scene in silence, looked at Subaru with hearts in her eyes. Even when he's torturing someone, he's so cool. Handsome and merciless. Lord Zero is perfect. Dear dear. To be continued. AN. The bonus chaps will depend on the ranking we get by the end of the week, so donate all the power stones you have. 26 comments 0 vote. 48 She is pathetic to be honest. ... Third person POV. Ah. Amelia bolted upright in bed, her scream slicing through the silence like a knife. Her body trembled, sweat clinging to her forehead as she gasped for air, still caught in the grips of panic. Within moments, Subaru burst into the room. His eyes quickly scanned her state before rushing to her side. It's okay, I'm here, he said softly, as she hugged him. Zero. Amelia cried out, burying her face into his chest as her trembling began to subside. His arms around her felt like a lifeline, anchoring her back to reality. He gently patted her back, murmuring soothing words into her ear. There, you're safe now. How are you feeling, Amelia? Subaru asked, leaning back slightly to meet her gaze. Her violet eyes shimmered with tears. I failed again, she admitted, her voice a whisper of despair as she slumped against him. Subaru gave her a reassuring smile, one hand moving to softly ruffle her hair. Come on, cheer up. So what if you've failed twice? I know you can do it, he said confidently. Amelia looked up at him, her expression conflicted, caught between disbelief and the flickering spark of hope. Really? But I don't even remember why I failed. I just started crying, and then, nothing. She frowned and clutched her head. Every attempt to recall the events brought on a sharp, splitting headache. Don't worry too much about it right now. What you need is food and a break, Subaru said with a cheerful tone. He stood and gently grabbed her hand. Amelia hesitated but nodded, allowing herself to be pulled up. As she followed behind him, her hand still in his, a blush slowly crept onto her cheeks. What is this feeling? She wondered, stealing a glance at Subaru's profile before quickly averting her gaze, her heart fluttering. When they arrived in the dining hall, the atmosphere shifted. Rem and Ram stood in place beside a seated Rosewall. Beatrice was perched in her usual corner, while Garfield sat at one end of the table with a sulking expression. Reina sat stiffly, and notably, Garfield seemed to avoid both her and Subaru's gaze entirely. He was clearly still traumatized after being thoroughly defeated by Subaru and Reina in their earlier encounter. After being praised by Reina, it knocked out all the courage he had. Subaru led Amelia to a seat, but just as they settled, Reina abruptly shifted hers and seated herself beside him, a move that didn't go unnoticed by anyone in the room. If I recall correctly, one of you is still serving as my maid, right? Subaru asked casually, his eyes on Rem. Rem immediately straightened and stepped closer, bowing with visible nervousness. I deeply apologize, Lord Zero. In the chaos, I almost forgot my punishment, she said sincerely. Subaru gave a small nod, accepting the apology without further comment. Rosewall's whimsical tone suddenly cut through the room. I see you failed again, dear Amelia. Amelia flinched, her head dropping in shame, a hollow smile creeping across her lips. This won't do, Rosewall continued, his tone suddenly sharpened. The villagers grow more restless by the day. If this situation continues unresolved, their trust will vanish. His gaze flickered to Subaru. And Lord Zero, perhaps you shouldn't coddle her either. A ruler who cannot bear responsibility is hardly worth the title. Despite the harsh words, Rosewall's true intention was the opposite. He wanted Subaru to support Amelia. That had always been part of his plan. Reina, however, didn't hold back. Her voice rang clear, her words like blades. Indeed, Lord Zero, a woman who collapses under the smallest pressure and constantly leans on others, she's unfit for the crown. Rosewall nearly choked. What the hell, Reina? That was supposed to be rhetorical. Please, Zero, don't listen to her. Keep supporting Amelia, he mentally pleaded, sweat beading at his brow. Meanwhile, Amelia looked stricken. Humiliation and helplessness welled up inside her. What have I actually accomplished? She thought bitterly. She'd lost her insignia on the very day she received it. If not for Zero and Reina's intervention, she wouldn't even have remained a royal candidate, she might not even be alive. Then there was the near attack on the village. She'd been blissfully unaware of the danger until Zero and Reina had swooped in and neutralized the threat. The memory of the royal capital resurfaced next, her inability to speak up, to defend herself. She and Puck had a contingency plan, but Puck had warned he might lash out violently if provoked. It was Subaru, Zero, who saved her reputation, shifting public perception in her favor, calming the nobles, and shielding her from ridicule. Then there was the white whale. She hadn't even participated in that. It had been Subaru again, leading the charge, slaying the beast, and protecting the village from the witch cult. She had been tasked with a simple evacuation, and failed. Now, she was trapped in the sanctuary, completely reliant on others once more. The crushing weight of her perceived uselessness brought tears to her eyes. And then came the cruelest blow. TCH. Crying again like a helpless child. Garfield sneered. She's pathetic. How could she possibly lead a kingdom? The silence that followed was damning. No one contradicted him. Rem and Ram looked away awkwardly. They knew how useless their royal candidate had been. Anastasia had wealth, an entire merchant conglomerate under her thumb. If she ruled, the economy of Lugunica would flourish. Crush was nobility and strength combined. A strategist and warrior, capable of turning back invasions with courage and tactics. Felt was rough around the edges, sure, but she was a wild card. She had potential and determination. Even Priscilla, brash and arrogant as she was, had status and power. And at least, well, she had some appeal to fans with her opie. But Amelia, what was she useful for? A lap pillow. Subaru didn't even love her in this timeline. Everyone in the room thought of many complaints in their mind. Subaru finally sighed. You all really suck at comforting people. He reached for Amelia's hand once more. Amelia, hey, come on. Don't cry. Pretty please. With sugar on top, he added, attempting to lighten the mood. Unfortunately, charm and tact weren't Subaru's strong suits. Author's note. His talents lie elsewhere. Ahem, bedroom skills. Haha. Just kidding, maybe. They're right, though. Amelia sobbed. I've done nothing but fail. What kind of queen does that make me? Subaru remained beside her, gently patting her back, his expression kind and patient. Rem and Ram exchanged a knowing look and sighed together. Meanwhile, Reina scowled, her fists clenched under the table. HMPH. As if Lord Subaru would ever choose a pathetic, whiny mess like her over me. She fumed inwardly, trying to reassure herself. Author's note. I want to make Reina the love interest, I really do. But man, these damn anime flags. They keep sprouting like weeds. Subaru smiled softly at Amelia. Feeling a bit better now? He asked. She nodded, cheeks still red with lingering embarrassment, but the tears had stopped. Then Rosewall, ever the observer, spoke again. Ziru, I've heard you entered and exited the trial chamber without injury. Subaru nodded. Yeah, seems I qualify to take the trials. The room collectively froze in surprise. Rosewall's grin spread ear to ear. Perfect. It's all happening, just like in the book. Author's note. Bro really said, I've seen this episode before. Wonderfuel, Rosewall sang. Then I implore you, Lord Zero, to take the trials in Amelia's place. Save us from this impasse. No. Amelia suddenly stood, her voice firm for once. I've made up my mind. I won't rely on Zero anymore. I'll take the trials myself. She declared, eyes blazing with renewed determination. Really? Garfield scoffed. What are the odds you don't come back sobbing again like a baby? Subaru shot him a glare that immediately silenced the beastman. Beatrice huffed. Honestly, this girl can't even function without Bubby. It's absurd in fact. Amelia's gaze swept across the room, only to be met with frowns and skepticism. Disappointment. Doubt. Her voice wavered as she began to speak again, but Subaru beat her to it. All right, enough, he declared, rising from his chair. Instead of tearing her down, why not support her? I believe in Amelia. She will succeed. I'm sure of it. Rosewall tilted his head, eyes gleaming. You or do trust her a loot? Subaru smirked. I trust her a lot more than a guy who dresses like a circus clown. Rosewall's eye twitched. Ram coughed, barely holding back a comment on Zero to save her lord's reputation. Garfield snorted with laughter. The tension began to break. The discussion was over, for now. To be continued. We are just a spot down. Don't you all want 3 bonus chaps? Fine, I promise 4 bonus chaps if we are number 1 by the end of the week. 23 comments 0 vote. 49 liar. Liar. You betrayed me. ... Third person Pav. So, how exactly are we supposed to get that cat out of this rock? Subaru asked, his voice tinged with both annoyance and confusion as he turned to his assembled spirits for suggestions. Why don't we just toss an algo at it? Proposed Agni with a smirk, flames flickering across his form. Or maybe throw it into a river. Aqua chimed in nonchalantly, as if the idea were the most logical in the world. What if we dissect it apart, piece by piece? Offered Sylphie, her tone disturbingly calm. Why don't we just throw more rocks at it? Gia added, genuinely pondering her own idea. Each bizarre suggestion made Subaru's eyebrow twitch harder with frustration, while Amelia, standing nearby, looked absolutely horrified by the sheer absurdity and violence of their proposals. Foo. I have a better idea, father. Came a haughty voice, drawing everyone's attention to Gloria, the self-proclaimed pride of the spirit family. HMPH. Come forth, great spirit of fire, and grovel at this concubine's feet. She declared dramatically, striking a pompous pose by shining brightly in golden light. Quote. An awkward silence swept over the group. Everyone simply stared at her in stunned disbelief, until Beatrice burst out into a fit of laughter, unable to hold it in. Have you forgotten that you don't have any feet, I suppose? Beatrice teased, her voice laced with amusement and mockery. HMPH. That's rich, coming from the glass cannon. Gloria shot back, her mana form quivering indignantly. What does that mean, I suppose? Beatrice snapped, eyes narrowing dangerously at the younger spirit. Subaru, however, was entirely uninterested in their squabbling. To him, this was nothing more than the usual chaos, one a 400-year-old lonely spirit lowly with abandonment issues, and the other a few months old young spirit with Gilgamesh disorder. Yin and yang they might be, but harmony? Not even close. Fed up, he decided to take action. Puck, come out right now, or I swear I'll tell Amelia all about the birds and the bees. Subaru threatened, his voice carrying a mischievous warning. A spark of energy shimmered in the air, and the fire spirit finally emerged, floating before Subaru with narrowed eyes. Hey, don't you dare fill my Leah's innocent mind with that kind of garbage. Puck barked protectively. But even as he spoke, he realized he had just made a critical mistake. Good. Now that you're out, Subaru turned toward Amelia, who gave a small nod, already sensing something serious was about to unfold. Puck, why didn't you answer me when I called you? Amelia asked gently, her eyes filled with concern and hurt. Puck flinched. Well, you know how all dads need a bit of alone time now and then, right? Yes, alone time, he said hastily, inching backward toward his glintstone. But Subaru moved swiftly, grabbing the spirit midair before he could retreat. Hey, let me go, Puck protested, wriggling in Subaru's grasp. Should I tell Amelia about the fact that you sealed her memories? Subaru's voice echoed inside Puck's mind, speaking through telepathy. Telepathy. Wait, how do you even know about the sealed memories? Puck's panic flared, and he froze in place, glaring at Subaru with wide eyes. I have my ways, Subaru responded grimly. But more importantly, do you even realize how damaging it's been for her? Her psyche is fracturing, she's emotionally breaking down. Shut up. You don't understand. You don't know what she went through, how she used to wake up crying every single morning. If I hadn't sealed those memories, she would have lived in endless torment. Puck shouted back within the silence of their minds. Perhaps you were right, back then. But now you're the one preventing her growth. She's trapped in a mental cage of your making, and she'll never move forward unless you stop being so overprotective. Puck's fury surged, and with a burst of power, he escaped Subaru's hold. Both Amelia and Rem, along with the others, watched in confusion as the tension between Subaru and Puck escalated, without a single word being spoken aloud. Their expressions shifted, jaws clenched, eyes locked in invisible conversation. Only Beatrice and Reina seemed to understand. Telepathy, Beatrice whispered. You will have to sever the contract, Subaru said at last, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The statement sent shockwaves through the group. What are you saying, Zero? Amelia asked, completely bewildered, while the beast of the end began to growl ominously. I will not break my contract with my daughter. Puck snarled. His fury flared as dozens of sharp, glacial spikes materialized behind him, aimed squarely at Subaru. Before he could launch them, a fiery aura surged forward. Agni floated in front of Subaru, his blazing body crackling with rage. Great spirit or not, no one attacks my father under my watch. The other spirits gathered protectively around Subaru, their elemental energies humming ominously as the atmosphere thickened with mana. Wait, stop, don't fight, what is going on? Amelia pleaded, clearly overwhelmed. Subaru sighed deeply, then finally spoke the truth. Puck has sealed your past memories, Amelia, that's why you're failing the trials. You don't even realize what you've lost. Amelia's expression collapsed. Her mouth opened in disbelief, and then she turned toward Puck. You believe him over me, Leah? Puck's voice cracked, pain flooding his eyes. The fact that she even considered Subaru's words felt like betrayal. Puck, is that true? She asked, her voice trembling and the cat spirit flinched. Of course not. Why would I ever twist our contract like that? Puck said, trying desperately to deny the accusation. My divine protection confirms that he is lying, Reina said flatly, her eyes glowing faintly. The color drained from Puck's face. Puck, please, just tell me the truth. Amelia begged. Puck clenched his teeth, his body visibly trembling. Then, at last, he sighed in defeat. I wanted to help you. I only ever wanted to protect you from your pain, to stop the nightmares, the endless tears. But his confession sliced through Amelia like a blade. Liar, liar, cheater, you betrayed me, you sealed my real memories from me. She screamed, sobbing uncontrollably. The words stunned Puck, who stared at Subaru with a look that said, see what you've done. Listen, Leah, Puck whispered, floating toward her slowly. I only ever wanted what was best for you. But before he could finish, Amelia slapped him, hard. You betrayed me too. Just go away, I don't want to see you anymore. She cried, turning away from him. Puck opened his mouth, trying to speak, but then closed it in silence. He vanished into his glintstone without another word. Amelia broke down completely, her sobs racking her body as she collapsed into Subaru's arms. The group fell into stunned silence, the weight of the moment settling over them like a storm cloud. Subaru held her tightly, gently resting his chin on her head as she wept. Meanwhile, Rem watched silently, a bitter thought blooming in her mind. Lady Amelia may not be fit to become queen. When the sobs finally quieted, Amelia lay still in Subaru's embrace, drawing comfort from the warmth of his body and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Subaru sighed, his expression somber. Did I go too far? Should I have handled this more delicately? He wondered. Perhaps I should have taken it slower, but then again there is no time to go slower. But even in the turmoil, one thought remained clear to him. Still, I have one more card left to play, he thought. To be continued. People are saying I give 5 bonus chaps. I am going to be honest, I haven't written anything for the week for this FIC, this is the 6th chap, and I have completed the 7th chap a week ago, that's how I have the chaps to release. I want to write the chap, but when I have mood, I don't have time, and when I have time I am not in the mood to write. I want to get a time period of another week after releasing the bonus chap, that's why I cannot increase the chap limit. But yeah, considering we are in top 3, and should remain in top 3 by the end of the week, I will give the promised 3 bonus chaps, I will try to see if they are longer as well. 23 comments 0 vote. 50 Master Flugel, is that you? Third POV. So now our task is to revive a potentially deceased great spirit of Earth. Agni asked, her tone half curious, half concerned. Not dead, just unconscious, Subaru corrected her calmly. He will likely need to absorb a significant amount of mana before regaining full consciousness, Beatrice remarked, her eyes focused on Subaru as she cradled Gius's glintstone delicately in her hands. There are 2 crucial objectives we need to accomplish, Subaru continued after a moment of silence. First, we must dissolve the contract between Amelia and Puck. Only then can she begin to recover her lost memories. He paused briefly before continuing. Secondly, we must awaken the slumbering great spirit residing within this glintstone. He was like a father to Amelia. His presence is important for her emotional balance and stability. Only then, Subaru added with a heavy sigh, can I even begin to imagine Amelia successfully overcoming the sanctuary trials. My liege, why don't you simply use the life sword and bring an end to this farce? I don't see any benefit in helping Lady Amelia, Reina asked bluntly, clearly unimpressed with the ongoing efforts to support the half-elf. Her words cut through the air like a blade, mercilessly targeting Amelia. Subaru didn't flinch. Reina, a true friend helps another grow. They don't step in to solve every problem like an overprotective caretaker. This is Amelia's trial. If she cannot overcome it on her own, then perhaps she should give up on her dream of becoming the queen. His voice was firm and his words blunt. Even Subaru knew how childish current Amelia was to be a ruler, she needed to grow and Subaru will be the one to become from a useless half-elf to a regal queen. Reina said nothing and then slowly nodded, acknowledging the hard truth Subaru had spoken, though she didn't seem to care about it much. I am a spirit of Earth, Gia said thoughtfully, her gaze now fixated on the glowing glintstone. Should I try lending him some of my mana? Are you an idiot? Beatrice snapped instantly, her tone sharp with concern. That could cause regression in your spiritual form. Gia said nothing more. She definitely enjoyed her sentient existence and wasn't keen on risking it, especially since she was used to inhabiting Subaru's soul, a place she found extremely comfortable. Maybe I should try, Subaru said, stepping forward with a plan. Let's see if I can wake him with some of my other abilities. With that, everyone grew quiet, eyes fixed on Subaru as he sat down, holding the glintstone firmly in his hands. He gently reached out with his psychic abilities, allowing his consciousness to make contact with the dormant spirit within. He entered the mental plane of the glintstone, softly nudging at the Great Spirit's sleeping consciousness. Moments later, the spirit began to stir. Within the ethereal mindscape, the Great Spirit of Earth slowly opened his eyes and, upon seeing Subaru, immediately called out, "Master." Huh. Subaru blinked, startled, wondering if he had fucked up Gius's mind somehow. "Master Flugel, is that you?" Gius asked again, tears welling up in his eyes, overflowing with emotion. Subaru's eyes widened as realization dawned. So this is yet another clue, pointing toward me possibly being the great sage himself, he thought. "I'm sorry, but I'm not Flugel," Subaru replied quietly. I see. I mistook you for someone else." Gius's expression shifted into deep sorrow. He could now clearly see that Subaru's hair and eye color were different, and his youthful face was not the same as Flugel's. Wait a moment. I remember, I killed her. I remember everything." Gius gasped, his voice trembling as a flood of terrible memories returned, memories of killing Fortuna, and being manipulated by Pandora into committing unspeakable atrocities. "Gius, I know your mind has been torn apart by guilt and despair for far too long. Pandora used you, twisted you, but you have to stay strong," Subaru said, moving to his side and placing a comforting hand on the spirit's back. I killed Fortuna. I almost harmed Emilia. I am nothing but a monster." Gius sobbed, regaining his sanity but collapsing under the weight of his remorse. "No, Gius, it wasn't your fault. You were manipulated, controlled. You are a victim too, not the true perpetrator," Subaru said with unwavering conviction. Really? But what I've done, it's beyond forgiveness. I murdered Fortuna, how can I ever face Emilia again?" "Gius," Subaru said firmly, "Emilia needs you now more than ever. To her, you are a father. She's alone, frightened, and lost in her own mind. She blames herself for everything, even for things that were never her doing. You are the one who can help her find her way back. She's just like you," Subaru continued, his voice softening. "Burdened by guilt, haunted by what she believes were her failures. But none of it was truly her fault. Her memories were stolen. Her suffering, like yours, was orchestrated by Pandora." Gius's eyes widened in horror and rage. Pandora, that wretched manipulator. How dare she use Emilia like that? He quickly understood the meaning behind Subaru's words. "There are mistakes in this world that could never be forgiven," Subaru said, his voice now somber. "However, the mistakes you and Emilia made weren't your intention, in fact it was far from it. You were manipulated, you both were forced, you tried to protect them, everyone, unfortunately for you the foe you faced was extremely strong. You did your best," Subaru finished. Gius broke down once more, sobbing uncontrollably. Subaru stayed by his side, offering silent support as the Great Spirit vented years of pain and sorrow. Eventually, Gius's tears slowed, and he straightened his posture. "Thank you," he whispered. "I will no longer run. I will face my sins. I will atone. And most importantly, I will help Emilia." "That's good to hear," Subaru said, nodding. "Can you manifest physically? Can you come out?" "I am still lacking in mana. If only I could regain some, I might be able to," Gius admitted, clenching his fists in frustration. Without hesitation, Subaru channeled his aura, an ethereal, healing energy, through his hands and into the glintstone. Eyes closed in deep concentration, he guided the soothing waves of spiritual energy directly into Gius's fragmented spirit. The healing began to take effect. Spiritual scars faded, and vitality flowed back into the dormant Great Spirit. Moments later, Subaru's eyes opened as he withdrew his consciousness. The glintstone in his hands began to glow brightly. With a sudden flash, the spiritual form of Gius materialized in front of the group. "Gius," Beatrice whispered softly, her voice tinged with emotion. "Miss Betty," Gius said, his voice heavy with nostalgia and reverence as he turned to look at her. Then, he turned to Subaru and bowed deeply. "Thank you, for giving me this second chance." The Great Spirit of Earth had awakened, ready to fulfill his purpose once more. To be continued. An. Had to proofread this chap. So yeah, now Emilia's second father is here. Man, she has 3 fathers if we think like this. If it was hentai, you can already see the past. Anyway, we dropped to 4. Let's see if you will get 3 bonus chap by the end of the week or not. 35 comments 0 vote. 51, she was a mess. ... Third POV. Emilia emerged from the trial chambers, her face streaked with tears, her expression a shattered reflection of defeat. Standing nearby, Garfield, along with Rem and Ram, immediately understood the outcome of Emilia's trial without needing to hear a single word. "Another failure, huh?" Garfield grunted, crossing his arms, frustration evident in his voice. I'm sorry," Emilia murmured, her voice trembling. "I don't even remember why I failed, it's all a blur." Her self-confidence was clearly shaken, her gaze fixed on the ground as though afraid to meet anyone's eyes. Seriously, she can't pass no matter how many times she tries, Garfield snapped, his tone laced with irritation. Garfield, Subaru's voice cut through the tension like a blade as he appeared suddenly, flanked by Reina, Beatrice, and a man none of them recognized. If memory serves, you've failed the trials yourself. So where exactly do you get the confidence to mock Amelia? Garfield froze, the accusation striking a nerve. Amelia's tear-stained face turned toward Subaru just as a voice, fragile and strained, called out her name. Amelia, the unknown man croaked, his entire body trembling uncontrollably. Subaru walked up to Amelia without hesitation, gently using a handkerchief to wipe away the tears from her cheeks. Then he took her hand in his own, offering a silent promise of comfort and strength. Puck, Subaru called out, raising his voice slightly. It's important, you need to come out. From within the glintstone, the familiar form of the cat spirit emerged, eyes wide with confusion. Who's that? Puck asked, pointing toward the trembling man. He seemed unable to recognize him. Apparently, his memories from before his encounter with Amelia were gone, severed when he broke his contract with the Witch of Greed, Echidna. The man stepped forward slightly, his voice barely holding together. Amelia, I'm Gius, your uncle. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. Amelia stared, stunned speechless. Even Puck looked taken aback, glancing back and forth between them. Subaru turned toward Puck, his expression serious, almost grim. Puck, you need to break your contract with Amelia. What? Puck exclaimed, his reaction immediate and defensive. Ice spears formed above his head in a clear show of emotion. I know how much you care about her, Subaru said firmly, unwavering. But whether you meant to or not, your actions are hindering her growth. You're protecting her so much, it's breaking her spirit instead of helping her. Puck flinched, his magical constructs beginning to flicker and fade. She needs to grow on her own, Subaru continued. You know this. And the only way for that to happen, is for the contract to end. It was a harsh truth. Breaking spirit contracts always came with consequences, often severe. More often than not, the one who initiated the severing suffered the brunt of those effects. It was selfish of Subaru to ask Puck to be the one to break the bond instead of Amelia, but he knew Amelia was already emotionally shattered. He couldn't bear to let her endure even more pain. I suppose I must, Puck muttered, his voice cracking as he looked at Amelia, eyes filled with sorrow and shame. Can you forgive me? He asked, barely above a whisper. Amelia, ever pure-hearted, gave him a soft, pained smile. I'm sorry, Puck. I said a lot of hurtful things in anger. Please forgive me. Puck's tiny fists clenched. She was asking for forgiveness, when clearly the blame was his. No, you don't need to ask me for anything, he said, his voice shaking. Your anger was justified. You were right. Then, in a surge of magical energy, Puck released the contract. A sudden wave of weakness swept over him. His essence flickered, fading slightly. On the other hand, the moment the bond broke, Amelia's sealed memories began to flood back. She cried out in agony, grabbing her head as the lost fragments of her past pierced her consciousness like blades. Gius rushed to her side, supporting her. No, she sobbed. What have I done? Visions of a frozen Elior forest overwhelmed her, a memory long buried now returning with brutal clarity. Amelia, my dear child, don't cry, Gius said, wrapping his arms around her protectively. It wasn't your fault. It was never your fault. Tears poured down Amelia's cheeks as she looked at Gius. Her eyes were a storm of emotions, grief, sadness, disbelief, joy, guilt, and confusion. It was Pandora, Gius said with urgency. She's the one who manipulated us, who forced these crimes upon us. She even erased herself from your memories. Subaru, holding Amelia's hand, gave it a reassuring squeeze. Her other hand was held tightly by Gius. Softly, calmly, Subaru began recounting the true events of the past, the hidden truths and the cruel machinations that led to this moment. At long last, Amelia began to see the truth. It was never truly her fault. Still, the burden of memory weighed heavily on her. Amelia, you were just a child, Gius whispered. If blame must be placed, then place it on me. I killed Fortuna. His voice cracked, and tears welled in his eyes. After that, I lost control. The witch factor was incompatible with me. It drove me to madness. I committed atrocities. No, Father Gius, Amelia cried, reaching for him. It's not your fault. You tried your best to protect us. The two of them embraced tightly, united not only by blood but also by shared trauma. They had finally reconciled, not just with each other, but with their own pasts. Rosewall sat in contemplative silence, listening to Ram as she recounted everything that had transpired. He hadn't expected this outcome. Not in the slightest. Patelgu's Romane Conti was supposed to be dead, killed by Natsuki Subaru himself. That was a pillar of his plan. And now Gius was alive. Subaru had derailed fate once again. All of my plans will unravel at this rate, Rosewall thought darkly, clenching his fists tightly. I suppose it's time to take drastic measures. It was a gamble now. A deadly one. Either Subaru would win, or Rosewall would. But Rosewall had a trump card. His resolve to resurrect his beloved sensei. At any cost. He called in his usual drawl, though his voice was low and ominous this time. Could you please fetch Garfield for me? I need to have a little chat with him. Ram, ever the dutiful maid, nodded. Though her servitude was born of complex emotions, some might even call it Stockholm Syndrome, she obeyed without question. Rosewall turned his eyes toward the horizon, a wicked glint in them. This time, he wasn't just playing a game. He was going to cook. And this time, he wasn't going to make super stew. No, this time, Rosewall was going to cook fucking biryani itself. To be continued. A.N. Rosewall thinks he can make biryani, bah. Subaru will make the best biryani ever. For those who haven't eaten biryani, I pity you. Just like how I wish to eat KFC one day, I hope you can eat biryani too. It is probably one of the best dishes made in world. Just ensure to not buy it from random stalls if you ever visit India. Also ensure the best transport. Indian heat is too much for us, not to mention guys who are used to living in colder environment. Also, tell me, is the story getting worse? I heard some complaints. They say it lacks substance. It is amusing that this is my first FIC that I have been making short chaps after my first 2 fics. It was a part of a big 10k word chap. If any of you face problem, you can read this on AO3, fanfiction.net, Scribblehub or Wattpad, to get the full chaps. Secondly, you can read my other fics. If you are searching for peak, then go visit Fate Poseidon. I promise it is not dropped. The sources trust me, bro. Haha. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy yourselves. We are reaching longer chaps and more interesting parts now. 24 comments, 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Acros_0. Download app now. 52. The Witches of Sin bonus chap. Third person POV. Meanwhile, after being reunited with Gius, who seemingly filled the emotional void that had long resided within Emilia's heart, she found herself rejuvenated and renewed with determination. With a newfound strength swelling in her chest, she declared that she would challenge the trials once more. Gius, however, gently suggested she take some time to rest and recover before pushing herself again. But Emilia, standing tall with fierce resolve, shook her head. This time, I will pass the trials, she said confidently, her voice unwavering. I won't falter like before. I won't run away. As long as I have you, Father Gius, and Zero by my side, I know I can do this. I won't lose again. A radiant smile graced her face, both beautiful and defiant, the smile of someone who had finally decided to confront her demons. Gius felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude wash over him. The chance to see Emilia again, to stand beside her as something more than just a shadow of his past, felt like a blessing from the heavens. It was an opportunity, perhaps his only one, to redeem himself after a lifetime of mistakes and sins. I will come along too, Subaru said suddenly, stepping forward. Wait, are you going to attempt the trials as well? Reina asked curiously, tilting her head. Subaru shook his head. Nah, I've got something else I need to do. Without waiting for further questions, he turned around and summoned all of his spirits into the open. They flickered into view one by one, each radiating a unique energy and presence. I want all of you to guard the entrance to the trial grounds, he commanded clearly. And above all, protect Betty. Okie dokie. Understood. Okay. This concubine shall carry out thy command. Each spirit responded with a distinct flair. HMPH. Betty needs no protection from inferior spirits, the great spirit of Yin pouted. I know, Subaru smiled, so protect them for me, Oki. Betty nodded. Then Subaru turned to Reina, his expression shifting to one of focused concern. Reina, I need you to scout the surrounding area. I have a strong suspicion that one of the 3 great beasts might be nearby. The air turned tense for a brief moment. Reina's eyes lit up, her fighting spirit ignited by the challenge. I see, if I run into it, I'll make sure to eliminate it. Finally, I've been given a proper task. Gius, Subaru said, shifting his attention. I want the 2 of you to monitor the village for any unrest. If anything feels even slightly off, I need to know immediately. Rem gave a respectful bow. As you command, Master Zero. It will be done. I'll take care of everything on the villagers, and, Gias said reassuringly. With his orders dispatched and everyone moving into position, Subaru followed after Amelia into the trial chamber. As the trial began and Amelia fell unconscious to confront her past, Subaru felt an unusual force brush against the edge of his consciousness. Should I open a spiritual tear to the dream castle? He wondered silently, but as the presence strengthened, something inside him shifted. Sensing familiarity, he allowed the force to take hold of him. A small, knowing smile curved his lips as he relaxed and surrendered his resistance. His body went limp, and his mind drifted into the world made by the witch. Inside the dream castle. You're back, Echidna said with her signature mischievous smile, entirely unfazed by their last encounter or the chaos that had ensued. It seems you're still as fond of brewing tea as ever, Subaru replied dryly, seating himself without ceremony. Echidna's smile widened as she handed him a delicate cup. This time, I've tried something new. I've used a different bodily fluid of mine to brew this particular blend. Subaru raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued, wondering what the enigmatic witch might have mixed. He glanced at the tea suspiciously, then shot her a flat look. Don't tell me it's your snot. How rude. Echidna pouted, folding her arms. Do you really think a refined lady like me would do something so vulgar? Then, like flipping a switch, she brightened again and leaned closer with a teasing glint in her eyes. It's something far more intimate. Why don't you take a wild guess? Subaru slid the teacup aside with a sigh. I'm really not interested in what sort of bodily essence you've decided to mix into your tea. I came here for another reason. I want to speak with the other witches. Echidna's cheerful expression faltered slightly, and a tinge of genuine disappointment flickered in her eyes. You really are the type one hate. People who are too strong-willed, bullies who toy with an innocent witch's fragile heart. She made a pitiful face, her tone turning melodramatic. You'd even trample on the only pride I have left in this lonely afterlife. Echidna, the witch of greed, who committed countless sins in the pursuit of knowledge, and still regrets many of them even after death, Subaru said, eyes narrowing. Her expression twisted ever so slightly in response to his words. You were the one who warned me to be wary of you, Subaru continued. And while we're at it, was it really the Witch of Envy who killed all of you? Didn't each of you meet your end in different ways? Caught red-handed, Echidna pinched the bridge of her nose in frustration. Her fabrications had been exposed. I just don't like her, all right, she said bluntly. Subaru ignored and asked, other witches please. Echidna gave Subaru a sharp glare, though it was poutier than menacing. Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. Not all of them are as charming as I am. And remember, do not remove Daphne's restraints, unless you've developed a sudden death wish. With those ominous words, she vanished, her presence fading like mist under sunlight. In her place appeared a young girl with short green hair, bright red eyes brimming with childlike wonder. A delicate wreath of blue flowers adorned her head, adding to her innocent charm. Oh, it's you, Baru, she squealed excitedly. You must be the Witch of Pride, Typhon, Subaru said, noting her youthful appearance but not underestimating her nature. Typhon reached out with her arms, but Subaru stepped back slightly, raising his hand. I'm here to speak with Daphne and Minerva, he said politely, trying to avoid her touch. Typhon slapped the table with a pout. Baru, that's so rude. You're not even going to hug me. Quote. Subaru didn't budge. Echidna, stop pretending that only one of you can appear at a time. I want to meet with the Witch of Wrath and the Witch of Gluttony. Now. He barely finished his sentence when Typhon darted forward, grabbing his hand with unexpected strength. Oh fuck, Subaru thought in a panic, suddenly filled with dread. He wondered if this was going to shatter his body or make him experience pain as if he was in hell. But to his surprise, nothing like that happened. Instead, Typhon's crimson eyes sparkled with wonder. Oh, you're really a good person, Baru. She squealed with delight. You don't even feel guilty about anything. That means your heart is pure. To her, Subaru was practically the embodiment of virtue, a flawless soul. But Subaru felt anything but flawless. Before he could respond, a sudden flash of light appeared high above the dreamscape's sky. The air trembled. A booming noise echoed across the landscape, as if a meteorite had collided with the ground. A shockwave blasted outward. At the center of a small smoking crater stood a strikingly powerful figure, Minerva, the Witch of Wrath. Her golden hair shone like sunlight, cascading in waves down her back. Her eyes, a brilliant aquamarine, glowed with unwavering resolve. She had an athletic, curvaceous body clad in a form-fitting outfit that radiated intensity. And then she began. First, I strike down all that defy justice and reason in this broken world. Second, let no one care whether an act is heinous if it is born from a desire to protect. Third, ugly or beautiful, it doesn't matter. If you exist in this fleeting world, you must face the consequences. Subaru stared, one eyebrow twitching slightly. She was so dramatic. My fists will restore the world. My fury shall cleanse all wrongs. My wrath, the force of my justice, will be the answer to everything. Subaru clapped slowly, an amused grin on his face. Impressive monologue, Miss Minerva. You definitely know how to make an entrance. Suddenly, her attention shifted. Hey, Typhon, how could you attack someone like that? Minerva yelled, pointing an accusatory finger at the green-haired girl. Then, almost instantly, she was by Subaru's side. She bent over him, frantically grabbing his shoulders and hands to inspect him as if checking for injuries. You're not hurt, are you? You're okay, right? Tell me you're fine. Her concern was so genuine and intense that Subaru couldn't help but smile. I'm all right, Lady Minerva. Completely unharmed, he replied warmly. But I do have a question for you. He didn't get to finish. Minerva was suddenly thrown back by an unseen force, flipping through the air before landing flat on her back with a loud thud. The impact left a crater of her own, though far less dramatic than her entrance. Calm yourself, girl, came a tired, sultry voice. Your enthusiasm is so overwhelming, it's almost like you're trying to propose to him. Subaru turned his head. Floating there with minimal effort, as if gravity itself barely concerned her, was a woman of graceful lethargy, Sekhmet, the Witch of Sloth. Her long, tangled magenta hair fell down her back like an overgrown vine, and her eyes were the same deep shade. She had an alluring figure draped in a seductive, yet sleepy, outfit that emphasized her curvaceous form. Her whole demeanor radiated slothful elegance. Oh, you must be the Witch of Sloth, Subaru observed. Sekhmet gave a slow nod, appreciating not having to introduce herself. Seriously, all of you had to show up, didn't you? Echidna's voice cried out, returning to the dreamscape in an agitated state. Her teeth clenched as she turned and saw two more arrivals standing beside her, Carmilla and Daphne. The Castle of Dreams suddenly felt a lot more crowded. Subaru sighed, exasperated. While I appreciate the warm welcome, I really only wanted to speak with the Witch of Wrath and the Witch of Gluttony. Sekhmet gave a faint smirk as she floated closer. We didn't come just to greet you, boy. We came to verify something, to confirm if you are truly her beloved. A cold shiver ran down Subaru's spine. What do you mean by that? He asked cautiously. Daphne, restrained in her grotesque and monstrous sarcophagus-like contraption, crept closer. Her eyes gleamed behind her blindfold, and her voice was disturbingly gleeful. Unknown power, forbidden knowledge, and a soul, so strange, with dual colors. Smells absolutely delicious, she said, licking her lips with visible drool slipping from the corner of her mouth. Subaru instinctively stepped back. You're really starting to remind me of a certain bowel hunter, you know, he muttered, eye twitching. Oh, is that fear I smell? Delectable, Daphne crooned, as if his fear was a delicacy. Sekhmet floated lazily above them. The fact that you're alive, and untouched by her wrath, suggests she's planning something dangerous. Subaru finally faced them seriously. What exactly are you implying? Echidna stepped forward, expression grave. What she means is, you're not the man we thought you were. You aren't the Witch of Envy's supposed lover. And the more I think about it, the more obvious it becomes, there are inconsistencies. Flaws in the memories of this world. She pointed at Subaru, her lips curling into a knowing grin. You are an anomaly, Natsuki Subaru. A person who should not exist. A glitch. Minerva, having finally gotten back to her feet, shouted indignantly, hey. Do you all really think she'd mistake her own lover? That's ridiculous. Is that so? B but, we all know his soul, Iado only has one color, Carmilla whispered, blushing furiously as she covered her face with her sleeves, too shy to look directly at Subaru. At that moment, everything clicked into place for Subaru. Subaru's eyes widened with realization. They had discovered the truth. He wasn't just Natsuki Subaru. He was also Ayan Ghosh. And the world itself wasn't recognizing him properly, it only registered what Subaru did, not who he was. Damn it. Don't tell me the Witch of Envy is going to flip out over this, Subaru thought, his heart racing. To be continued. Here is a bonus chap. Since we are in top 10, we won't be falling in top 20 in 2 days, so I can give the first bonus chap. Now try to take it to top 3 for the next 2 bonus chaps, or you will get only 1 bonus chap. If we are in top 1, I will give 3 more bonus chaps. Also, I will be honest, I think I did mess up writing this fic fast-paced. I didn't flesh out details as much I should have, however the situation with this fic is different. First, I don't have that much time. Gone were the days where I could upload a 2k to 3k word chap every day. Secondly, if I drag a fic too long, I get bored, so this is what happened with fic. I cannot do much about this. Time is something that I don't have and I am not willing to take time out of my schedule. I am already sleep deprived with constant migraines. 19 comments 0 vote. 53 Satella and the Witch of the Envy. Third person Pav. Damn it. Don't tell me the Witch of Envy is going to flip out over this, Subaru thought, his heart racing. Though he was indeed Natsuki Subaru, he had become something far more complex. His soul had fused with another, an entity possessing knowledge of events yet to come. This fusion made him a walking contradiction, an anomaly. To any observer, it would appear as if the real Natsuki Subaru had been consumed by this foreign presence, a parasite masquerading in his skin. It seems Mr. Natsuki Subaru has already grasped the gravity of our situation, Sekhmet remarked in her languid tone, watching his blank, unreadable expression. Suddenly, the entire realm trembled violently. All the witches reacted instantly. Their expressions morphed, some with fear, others with dread. No, not again, cried Carmilla, who instinctively hid behind Sekhmet, trembling. The once bright sky blackened ominously. A figure cloaked entirely in darkness appeared in the distance, its very presence warping the air with an oppressive pressure. Is that Tella, or the witch? Typhon wondered aloud, tilting her head curiously. She doesn't look too happy, Echidna muttered with a gleam of amusement that masked her concern. Subaru, on the other hand, was silently spiraling into a mental breakdown. Am I really Natsuki Subaru? Or just a fraud? Someone who hijacked his memories, his body, his life? Before the thought could solidify, dozens of shadowy arms erupted from behind the blackened figure. They shot forward with terrifying speed, each targeting the witches like javelins made of hatred. Well, I guess that answers our question, Echidna quipped dryly as all the witches immediately scattered, distancing themselves from Subaru. Sekhmet responded first, unleashing her own authority. A wave of power rippled outward as she shielded Typhon and Carmilla from the incoming barrage, meeting the Witch of Envy's attack head-on. Satella, fight it. Don't let her consume you. Minerva yelled desperately, but her cries were met with a fresh volley of shadowy appendages. Meanwhile, Subaru exhaled deeply. None of the attacks had been aimed at him. It was almost as if the Witch of Envy, no, Satella, was actively trying to push the others away from him, rather than hurt him directly. Fuck it. If things go to hell, I'm not dying without dragging her down with me. Subaru resolved, his eyes narrowing with determination. Then came a wave of raw, malevolent energy. A black aura thundered down from above like a collapsing storm cloud. Shield yourselves, Minerva shouted, but it was too late. The blast flung the witches through the air like ragdolls. Minerva and Sekhmet recovered midair, landing with elegance and composure. Daphne and Typhon, despite the chaos, managed to land on their feet effortlessly. Carmilla, however, crashed hard, and as for Echidna, she landed face first in the dirt, her legs awkwardly in the air, backside prominent. Damn it, you absolute bitch. Echidna groaned, spitting out artificial soil. Her pride had taken more damage than her body. I love you. 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 The Witch of Envy repeated the mantra over and over, each word soaked in obsession, as she slowly floated toward Subaru. Stop, he said. No response. I said stop, he growled, louder. Still nothing. I said stop. Subaru roared, his voice infused with raw emotion. In that moment, his aura exploded into view. A kaleidoscope of colors swirled around him before settling into a radiant blue hue, a shimmering shield that deflected the encroaching miasma. Finally, she stopped. Love me, love me, love me, love me, she chanted, her words shifting, now tinged with hurt. She interpreted his rejection as betrayal. Yahoo! Are you sure he's your lover? Echidna suddenly shouted from the side, unable to resist poking the bear. Instant silence. The Witch of Envy's head slowly turned. Her miasma thickened into a suffocating haze. The temperature dropped. Even the ground began to warp. You had to do it, huh? Sekhmet muttered, disappointed but not surprised. Echidna's eyebrows twitched. Despite her arrogance, a sliver of regret crept into her heart. She had done many things she wasn't proud of, but this might just be the one that cost her everything. For the Witch of Greed, there were things she had done that she still regretted to this day. However, after this, whether she would even have the chance to regret anything again was highly uncertain. Thousands of shadow hands erupted from the sky, blotting out what little light remained. Spiked tendrils of shadow burst from the earth like fangs. The Witch of Greed was royally, unquestionably screwed. In simple words, she fucked up. Minerva leapt in front of Echidna, summoning her own power to shield her, only to be ripped apart by a swarm of shadow claws. Sekhmet summoned a battalion of her own shadow limbs, clashing violently with envies, chaos against chaos, hatred against indifference. Typhon tried to protect herself, but her authority faltered. Even she, the Witch of Pride, was overwhelmed. Subaru had seen enough. He stepped forward, his aura flaring to its peak. With a single swing of his hand, a wave of energy pulsed outward, obliterating the incoming attacks. The shadow hands disintegrated, and the sky cleared just enough to reveal her. Her veil was blown away. There she stood, a breathtaking woman with pale lavender skin, haunting purple eyes, and a curvaceous figure. Subaru froze. Subaru silently offered a prayer to every god he could think of, then reached out and gently patted her head. Then, silently, he raised his hand, and gently placed it on her head. To everyone's astonishment, the miasma around her instantly began to dissipate. Her body shimmered, transforming. Her skin brightened to a healthy white, her hair turned silver, and her figure slimmed slightly. My love, she whispered. It was Satella, not the Witch of Envy. Wait, did he just calm her down? With a freaking head pat, Minerva gawked, unable to believe what she had just witnessed. I'd like to understand this myself. Sekhmet yawned, though her tone hinted at curiosity more than boredom. Subaru exhaled in relief, the crushing pressure finally lifting. Are you Satella? He asked, his voice soft and unsure. Yes, she replied, bowing her head, ashamed to meet his eyes. Your other self caused quite a mess, you know, Sekhmet said, crossing her arms. I'm pretty sure Echidna would be dead meat right now if you hadn't intervened. I didn't take over, Satella said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. She willingly gave up control. Her words surprised everyone present. Did the power of love actually win? Minerva stammered, her usual confidence shaken. Even she couldn't fully believe what she was witnessing. This wasn't just any villainess. This was the Witch of Envy, the very embodiment of obsessive madness. As she seems rather docile in his presence, Satella continued quietly, as if speaking the thought out loud confirmed it for herself. Wait a second. Are we absolutely sure we're talking about the same person here? Subaru asked, disbelief painted across his face. In his mind, the Witch of Envy was anything but submissive. The contrast was so jarring, he could barely reconcile the two images. I think she might have realized the true value of love, Carmilla offered timidly, her voice barely audible. Everyone turned toward her, stared for a long moment, and then promptly rolled their eyes. As if, what does she think this is? Disney. This is what I truly believe, Carmilla murmured, even as they ignored her. Wait, let's ask the real question now, Echidna interjected, her tone suddenly serious. Is the Witch of Envy being controlled by someone? A heavy silence followed her words, the air thick with tension. What? How can she be controlled? Minerva blurted out, clearly agitated. She overcame Pandora, remember. The Witch of Vainglory couldn't manipulate her. Still, Sekhmet said, eyes half-lidded as always but voice sharp with insight, it would explain a lot. Especially the fact that the Subaru standing before us isn't entirely the real Subaru. Subaru clenched his fists, his frustration boiling over. You know what? I should have let her wipe the floor with all of you, he growled through gritted teeth. Love is love, Satella said firmly, stepping forward. Her voice had lost all its earlier softness, it rang with conviction. He is not a fake. But his soul, it has two colors, Echidna argued, her eyes narrowing. He's always had a two-colored soul, Satella replied without hesitation. That statement sent a wave of unease through the witches. Their expressions twisted in alarm, and almost in unison, they stepped back from Subaru. Are you really Satella? Daphne asked cautiously as Satella gently reached out and took Subaru's hand. I'm sorry, Satella said, her voice trembling as she pressed her cheek against his palm. You had to die so many times, and I couldn't stop it. Sekhmet's usual lethargy vanished in an instant. Her demeanor turned sharp and focused. Something wasn't right, terribly not right. The Witch of Envy had never been this passive, never this composed in Subaru's presence. And Satella, she had always been kind, yes, but not bold. Certainly not this bold. It felt as though their very personalities had been rewritten. I won't let them hurt you, Satella declared, turning toward the other witches, her voice calm yet threatening. Wait a minute, Subaru cried out, taking a cautious step back. Look, I don't like them either, especially that smug, white-haired bitch, but can someone please tell me what the actual hell is going on? Then first, tell us who you really are, Minerva demanded. Subaru stared at them all for a moment, then exhaled sharply as he reached his breaking point. I am Natsuki Subaru, he said. Then, after a short pause, he continued, I am also Ayan Ghosh. I am both of them. There was no hesitation in his voice now. The truth was out. I admit, I have knowledge I shouldn't possess, but seriously, what the hell is going on? He shouted, his voice echoing. A fusion of souls, Echidna muttered, her eyes gleaming with intellectual hunger. That would explain everything. Oh boy, Sekhmet said dryly, he just spilled the beans. The Witch of Envy, Echidna began, is a dangerously obsessive woman. She doesn't care about method, only outcome. She was never submissive. That's simply not who she is. And Satella, Sekhmet added, was never this assertive. She used to weep for her beloved. She would cry over being unable to help him, not stand tall and protect him. So you're saying, Subaru began, eyes wide in disbelief. You think she is the one being manipulated? Yes, that's exactly what we're saying, Sekhmet confirmed. You are the anomaly, so naturally, our suspicion falls on you. You're all wrong, Satella said suddenly, silencing them. All eyes turned to her. I'm not the one being manipulated, she said. You are. The place fell completely silent. Satella's words felt like an invisible shockwave. If they'd been playing cards, this was the equivalent of slapping down a glowing Uno reverse. Subaru has always had a dual-colored soul, Satella continued. He could teleport, speak telepathically, and manipulate unseen forces. He's always been strong, stronger than he knows. He can even erase the very concept of information itself. Her last sentence caused even Echidna to stiffen. Satella leaned closer to Subaru, clinging to his arm. He swallowed nervously but didn't pull away. In the darkest nights, she said, when I had no one, no hope, no purpose, he held me. He comforted me. He kissed me. Even when I lost my mind, he stayed. He loved a useless girl like me and never gave up on me. I remember every single moment we shared. Every second. I can never forget them. And I will not allow you to tarnish his identity. For a moment, no one spoke. I guess, we are the ones being manipulated, Daphne murmured, her voice unsteady. If Satella is truly stronger than any of us, it makes sense that she would be the only one unaffected. I think I know which woman is behind all this, Sekhmet said grimly. Pandora, Echidna hissed. Her usual smirk was gone. Her fists clenched tightly enough that blood began to trickle from her palms. The realization had struck all of them like a bolt of lightning. Pandora, the witch of vainglory. The only one who could tamper with memories so intricately. The only one who could alter reality itself without anyone noticing. And if Satella was truly untouched, then it meant she alone retained the truth of what had really happened. Subaru opened his mouth to speak, but the question swarming his mind drowned out his voice. He was in the middle of a full-blown existential crisis. Finally, he turned to Satella. Can you tell me the truth? He asked gently. Satella paused for a long moment, then replied with a faint smile, you will know, when the time is right. Everything will become clear. Subaru didn't press further. Instead, he turned to Minerva and the others. I have a few questions for you, he said. First, Minerva, are you Amelia's mother? Minerva's eyes widened in shock, her jaw falling open. Well, yes, she is the mother of that child, Sekhmet casually replied. You weren't supposed to tell him. Minerva shouted, stomping her foot in frustration. Ignoring her tantrum, Subaru asked his next question. Second, how do I defeat the Black Serpent and the Great Rabbit? The Great Rabbit, Daphne answered, multiplies infinitely and is drawn to mana. To destroy it, you must lure them all to a single location and eliminate every last one in a single attack. As for the Black Serpent, she continued, you don't need to kill it all at once, but you do have to destroy every part of it completely. If even a piece survives, it will regenerate. Subaru nodded, satisfied with the answers. Well then, he said with a respectful bow, thank you all for your help. I guess I'll be taking my leave now. To be continued. A.N. Okay, if we can get it top 3 by TMRW, you will get 2 more bonus chaps. If we become number 1, you will get 4 bonus chaps. 34 comments 0 vote. 54 may the better cook win bonus chap. ... Third POV. As Subaru turned to depart from the Castle of Dreams, a familiar voice echoed behind him, halting his steps. Wait a moment, Echidna called out, stepping forward with a composed expression, her white hair shimmering like moonlight beneath the dreamscape's glow. I have an offer for you, she said, her tone calm yet laced with undeniable intrigue. Your abilities, your potential, fascinate me. Let's form a contract. I'll lend you everything I have. My knowledge, my magic, my intellect, and in return, you will allow me to study your powers. In depth. Without limits. She paused, watching his reaction carefully before adding, and before you reject this, understand what I offer. I possess all the magical knowledge this world holds. I am the creator of media, the very essence of magical classification and understanding. I know countless secrets about this world, though, she frowned slightly, I admit, I cannot say how many of those truths remain valid after all this time. Despite the humble note in her voice, her smile soon returned, gentle yet brimming with unquenchable curiosity. Subaru stood still, her words weighing heavily on his mind. Should I really form a contract with her? He pondered. Compared to the NB Subaru's timeline's proposal she had made to him, this one was far more generous, tempting, even. There was much he didn't know, despite his experiences. Her knowledge could help him survive. Then came a dry voice, one that sliced through the atmosphere like a blade of sarcasm. Echidna, you're seriously proposing a soul-bound contract in front of the Witch of Envy. Sekhmet drawled lazily, lounging to the side with half-lidded eyes. You've got some nerve. Yet despite the incredulity in her voice, there was no real surprise. After all, greed had driven Echidna to places where one wouldn't go even with a great sword of power. I refuse, Subaru said, finally breaking the silence. Echidna's smile faltered. You're embarrassing yourself now, Minerva muttered, crossing her arms as she glared at the Witch of Greed. But then Subaru did something none of the witches had anticipated. Instead, I present you a deal, he said, a sudden glint of ambition flickering in his eyes. Gasps echoed throughout the dreamscape. I want everything you are, your soul, your knowledge, your body, your mind, your very existence, Subaru said, his voice laced with boldness and unmistakable desire. In return, I will grant you knowledge of my abilities, knowledge from another world. Together, we will create things that have never existed before. We will revolutionize this world, and maybe, discover how to travel through other worlds. He stepped forward, now standing before her with a fervent gaze. Imagine it, Echidna. Endless worlds. Infinite knowledge. A multiverse waiting to be explored. The Witch of Greed was already trembling with excitement, her breath shallow, her eyes wide. That's unbelievably greedy, she stammered, flushed and panting, overwhelmed by the sheer scope of what he proposed. You're sounding more like the Witch of Greed than the actual one right now. Minerva cried in outrage, pointing an accusatory finger at Subaru. And don't you already have Satella? And that sword saint? And my Amelia? Why are you adding Echidna to the list now? She fumed. So, Baru's a scumbag? Typhon asked innocently, tilting her head, her tiny hands clasped behind her back. Subaru smiled, looking at each of them in turn. If I were weak, if I were helpless like before, I might have accepted a deal where I was at a disadvantage. One where I was the one being used, broken, and tormented, he said, voice calm yet firm. But I'm not that man anymore. He stepped even closer to Echidna. Now that I've become strong, you start complaining. Greed, pride, sloth, lust, envy, wrath, gluttony, I embody them all and I ain't being a saint, Subaru said, a confident smile forming on his lips. His hand extended toward her, open and confident. So what do you say, Echidna? Trade yourself, your very being, for the knowledge you've always craved in a life outside this dull prison of castle of dreams. A fair exchange, isn't it? We both get to satisfy our greed. Satella, who had remained eerily quiet throughout, tightened her embrace around Subaru's arm. His limbs rested between her soft chest as she watched everything unfold without uttering a word. Yes, indeed, I accept the proposal, Echidna said with a smile. Truthfully, she was on the losing end of the deal. But she didn't care. The Witch of Greed was never bound by human emotions or measured by human standards. To satisfy her insatiable hunger for knowledge, she was willing to do anything, even if it meant selling herself, even if it meant reducing herself to a slave. Natsuki Subaru had offered her a deal she simply could not refuse. If she turned it down, she would no longer be worthy of the title Witch of Greed. Thus with unwavering resolve, she reached out and grasped Subaru's hand. I, Echidna, Witch of Greed, hereby form a contract. My soul shall be bound to Natsuki Subaru. He shall have claim to my entire knowledge, my body, my soul, my mind, and every fiber of my being. In return, he shall provide me with knowledge from his world. Should he fail to deliver, the contract is void. But if he fulfills it, then my servitude is eternal. Her voice rang out like the toll of a sacred bell. Do you accept this contract, Natsuki Subaru? She asked. This is madness, Minerva yelled, clenching her fists so tightly her knuckles turned white. Indeed, the terms were devastatingly one-sided. So long as Subaru delivered even a sufficient amount of valuable knowledge, the contract would be fulfilled, and Echidna would be his forever. Should she break it, her soul would be irrevocably destroyed. No second chances. No rebirth. Just annihilation. I've already envisioned this outcome, Sekhmet said with a sigh. She's Echidna, after all. What if he doesn't give you more than you want? Minerva asked, horrified. Echidna turned to her, her expression serene. Forgive me, Minerva, but I suppose I'm just too greedy to care. Besides, I believe in him, Echidna said, her voice laced with subtle confidence. After all, I'm no worse than a certain half-elf who can't even take care of herself, yet somehow keeps getting endless chances. As she spoke, she subtly accentuated her curves with a knowing smirk. However, Minerva stomped her foot on the ground and shouted, do whatever you want, you bitch. But leave my Amelia out of it. Let's keep it PG-13, Subaru said with a chuckle, glancing at the three lowly witches nearby. We've got kids in the room. Then Subaru shifted his gaze to Satella, thoughts swirling in his mind. Damn, her embrace is so soft, and she smells incredible. Damn it, Satella is like Amelia, but 1,000 times better. She's the ultimate waifu material, he thought. My love, I wish you the best in whatever lies ahead, Satella said softly as she gently released him from her embrace. To be honest, I still have so many questions, Subaru replied, lifting her chin with a tender hand, but I promise you this. He leaned in and kissed her. Gasps echoed from the witches, while tears welled in the corners of Satella's eyes. It still feels the same, she thought, melting into the kiss as their tongues met, creating a brief, intimate symphony of connection and desire. When they finally parted, Subaru was breathless. I'll be waiting then, my love, Satella whispered with a blush before vanishing from her place. She is, just extremely, incredibly shy. Now that you've finished your romantic moment, Echidna said dryly, clearly relieved by Satella's departure, shall I open the barrier for you? Subaru, still emotionally stirred, felt a tinge of conflict. She's dangerously addictive, he admitted to himself. It feels like, she was made for me, he thought. Shaking off the lingering emotions, he asked, which trial is Amelia currently facing? The second trial, Echidna replied, a visible frown on her face. And let's just say, I'm not exactly happy with how smoothly she's handling it. Subaru chuckled lightly. No need to open the barrier I think it's time for me to take my leave. Our souls are bound by contract now, Echidna reminded him with a mischievous glint in her eye. I can appear at your side whenever I wish, though only you will be able to see me. A wicked thought surfaced in Subaru's mind. I wonder how Rosewall will feel knowing his beloved sensei now belongs to me. Now, it was Subaru's turn to do the cooking. Rosewall, get ready to be served. And with that, Subaru departed from the Castle of Dreams. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Rosewall stepped out of his residence, the cold wind brushing against his face. I wonder, he mused, will you be able to save everyone this time, Natsuki Subaru? The sanctuary was on the brink of calamity. The Great Rabbit was preparing to strike, and this time, a new Sin Archbishop was coming with it. Meanwhile, the mansion was facing its own crisis, Elsa the Bowel Hunter. This time, there would be no mercy. Rosewall had Garfield on his side, a powerful and unpredictable ally. He was cooking, but so was Subaru. Now, it was only a matter of time before they tasted each other's dishes. May the better cook win. To be continued. This is your last chance. To get another bonus chap, give me everything you have. You have 5 hours remaining. Also read Subaru's status chap. 24 comments 0 vote. 55 outside the trials bonus chap. Third person POV. Subaru emerged from the trial chamber, his consciousness once again anchored in his physical body. The heavy atmosphere of the sanctuary still lingered, but he could feel a slight shift, one that carried a sense of progress. Not long after, Amelia stirred awake from where she had been resting. The moment her eyes met Subaru's, she broke into a bright smile and rushed toward him. I completed the second trial, she announced cheerfully, throwing her arms around him in a spontaneous embrace. Subaru blinked in surprise at the sudden contact. Congratulations, Amelia, but can you not cling to me like that? He replied with a slight grimace. Amelia pouted at him like a child scolded for reaching into the cookie jar. Fine, but I'm going to attempt the third trial right away. I feel like I can really do it this time. There was a fire in her eyes, one of hope and newfound determination. Where the first trial had shaken her, the second had left her almost invigorated. It was clear she was building momentum. Watching her hurry off, Subaru felt a familiar, ethereal presence surround him. He sighed internally as he heard the voice only he could hear. I seriously hate her. She reminds me of Satella. Echidna's voice drifted into his thoughts, her tone laced with contempt. Her soul, incorporeal and invisible to others, floated around him. 0. Amelia called back to him. Tell Father Gius not to worry. I'll pass all the trials, I promise. Subaru nodded. Consider it done. As Amelia vanished into the third trial chamber, Subaru turned his attention back to Echidna. His expression grew serious. Am I the only one who can see you? He asked her silently, using the mental link they had developed. Yes, Echidna replied, drifting closer with a smug smile on her face. Even the Sword Saint wouldn't be able to perceive me, not unless she gains a divine protection that lets her see the dead. She circled him like a mischievous wraith before leaning in and wrapping her arms around his neck. The sensation wasn't quite physical, it was more like a ghost of touch, a gentle pressure that tickled the nerves of his soul rather than his skin. Are you planning to haunt me now? He asked dryly. Haunt is such an ugly word, she purred. Let's say I'm bound to you. A slave to you, as according to our contract. And to be honest, my maidenly heart finds you quite attractive. Her voice whispered in his mind like silk, a calculated attempt to seduce and manipulate. Subaru rolled his eyes, unamused. Only lunatics like her could say something so deranged and somehow think it counted as flirting. But he'd grown used to that kind of insanity. After all, this wasn't the first woman with a few screws loose in her mind that he met. One such unhinged woman was Ram, the classic case of Stockholm Syndrome. Oh man, if Rosewall saw how his precious sensei was clinging to me like this, he'd break down sobbing. He smirked at the thought. He was a fun experiment, Echidna said dismissively. But he can't hold a candle to you. Typical Echidna, always stroking his ego while plotting how to benefit from his talents. It was obvious she was trying to keep him close by pretending to be lovesick. She wanted to make sure he'd eventually fulfill her selfish ambitions. Women, Subaru thought with as he rolled his eyes in exasperation. As he exited the ancient stone structure and stepped into the sanctuary's open grounds, he was quickly greeted by a swarm of familiar presences, his spirits. Father, Agni, the fiery spirit, flew toward him with unrestrained excitement. Several others followed in close pursuit, surrounding him with warmth and energy. This concubine was bored to tears waiting out here. HMPH. Gloria, the prideful spirit of Yang, huffed with indignation, crossing her arms. Betty has waited very patiently for her contractor, Beatrice said with an air of entitlement. Betty demands a reward, I suppose. Subaru chuckled softly and began patting Beatrice's head, his expression softening. You'll all get a reward. He took the time to acknowledge each of his spirits individually, giving them affectionate head pats or light caresses. Despite their grandiose demands, they didn't really care about material rewards, they just wanted his attention, his affection. And Subaru was more than willing to give it to them. Even Gloria, difficult to please, seemed to melt a little under his touch. From beside him, Echidna observed with keen interest. You've really gathered an impressive group of spirits, she mused, admiration laced with envy. Your spiritual affinity is terrifying. With a little more time, they'll all evolve into great spirits. She wasn't exaggerating. Great spirits were not just rare, they were practically legends. Each one held immense magical power and an eternal lifespan. The fact that Subaru had 6 elemental spirits at his side, 5 of which were on the verge of evolving, was enough to stir even Echidna's greedy heart. She had created Puck and Beatrice, but natural spirits possessed a unique wonder all their own. She watched him interact with them, her scholarly curiosity beginning to burn. I want to know everything. Their personalities, their strengths, their origins. To witness the birth of 5 great spirits is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But Subaru's next words broke her train of thought. If you ever get resurrected, he said sternly, not bothering to use telepathy this time, you're going to apologize to Betty. No games. No excuses. Echidna's smile froze. The casual arrogance faded from her expression for a fleeting moment. She opened her mouth as if to reply, but no words came out. For once, she was silent, however in the end she managed to utter some words. Just so you know, the Echidna from 400 years ago was different from me, Echidna said, attempting to diffuse Subaru's rising irritation. I'm a younger version of her, the best fragment she was able to preserve from her soul. The moment the other witches find out about her situation, they would no doubt laugh. The proud witch of greed, who once sought knowledge above all else, had now ended up in the humiliating position of doing her best to please a man, just to ensure her gamble didn't backfire. Only the witch of greed would be reckless enough to take such a risk. Anyway, Subaru began, shifting the subject. I have a task for all of you. He glanced guiltily at Beatrice, who was already pouting in disapproval. Amelia has completed her 2nd trial and is currently challenging the 3rd. In the meantime, I need 3 of you to stay behind and protect her, and this place. Betty wants to stay with her contractor. The great spirit of Yin protested instantly, rejecting the assignment without hesitation. HMPH. This concubine refuses to babysit that half-elf. Gloria, the spirit of Yang, added with a huff. The irony wasn't lost on Subaru. Gloria, technically just a few months old, was mocking someone who had lived for over a century. Thankfully, not all of them were so difficult. If it's your order, father, I'll do it, Sylphie, the spirit of wind, said calmly and obediently. Subaru had long since learned to recognize the distinct personalities of his spirits. Aqua was the cheerful, mischievous troublemaker. Agni, ever fiery and proud, liked to end her statements with a dramatic, umu. Gloria was a tsundere through and through, a haughty spirit not unlike a female version of Gilgamesh, with Subaru playing her enkidu. Sylphie was quiet and unwavering, never questioning his commands. Gia was the most normal of the bunch, just a kind, responsible girl. And then there was Beatrice, who was just Beatrice. Don't worry, father, I'll protect her with Sylphie, Gia chimed in reassuringly. Subaru looked between his dependable daughters and the more troublesome ones, and couldn't help but sigh and shake his head. Damn it, he really became that Asian parent who compares his kids. That leaves Aqua and Agni. So, which one of you wants to stay behind? He asked, turning to the last pair. The two elemental opposites looked at each other for a moment. Don't worry, father, I'll wait here, Agni said with a confident nod. Aqua giggled in reply. Thanks, sis. How ironic. Fire and water were in perfect harmony, while Subaru glanced at Beatrice, who was glaring daggers at the glowing orb of golden mana floating nearby. Yin and Yang, on the other hand, were on the verge of chaos. Gloria, Aqua, and Betty, anchor to me, Subaru commanded, his tone firm. At his order, the 3 spirits entered his body in a flash of light. Moments later, he vanished, teleporting away from the sanctuary. Before truly departing, he stopped briefly to inform Gias of Amelia's success, leaving behind a hopeful air in the sanctuary. To be continued. I don't think I will upload any chaps this week, my stock is almost empty. I have like 6 to 7 chaps left. Inkstone. I will see if I get time this week so I can write 1 or 2 10k words chap. Even if I don't write, I will upload the rest of the chaps next week. We are officially on the 8th chap of this FIC, yes, the 8th. That's like 80k words raw, and 90k words of proofreaded, uploaded chap. After proofreading, the chaps usually get longer, so that's that, so you get more like 13k words per chap. Also, visit the auxiliary chapter that I have uploaded, it shows Subaru's capabilities. I will update it after his authority of greed is revealed, and any other ability he gains in the next chap. Just so you know, he will gain an ability in future that will make him gain the title, Enlightened One, or, the Great Sage Beyond the Heavens. Have any guess? The full name of this FIC is RE0, the Great Sage Beyond the Heavens. 33 comments 0 vote.